Chair Thompson.
Present.
Vice Chair Lee.
Present.
Board Member Baltai.
Present.
Board Member Hirsch.
Present.
Board Member Liu.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item is oral communications. The public may speak to any item not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
Right now we have just 2 members, but they haven't raised their hands.
Okay. In that case, we'll move on. The next item is agenda changes, additions, and deletions.
And no changes at this time.
Okay, thanks. The city official reports is the next item.
Yes, and I don't know if, is Medina, are you able to bring this up for the city official report? So we're, this is I think our first time as a new crew. So thank you, Medina, for taking over now that Vin has gone.
Yeah, and let me just a second bring it up.
And so I'm looking at this, really the schedule, maybe we don't need to do it, Medina.
Mm-hmm.
The schedule, we're just going to the end of the year. We're going to continue to be virtual. I believe, though, we will have items for all the different hearings. So we're having the meeting today, and then December 2nd, we have a meeting, and December 16th. And like I said, I believe we will have items for those. On the 2nd, we are likely to talk about the Costalea School project. I know that Amy's furiously working on that staff report. So thank you. That's it for the official reports.
Okay, thanks. And so I guess that'll take us to our first item, the study session. So this is for 739 Sutter, request for a preliminary architectural review of a proposed 12-unit townhome development within 2 buildings on a 0.38 acre site.
Yes, and we do have a new consultant with us this morning. Stan Ketchum is with M Group. He's going to be helping out on some of our projects while Claire is away. And I am going to run this presentation. So now I get to remember how to do that. Why? Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had extra buttons because Medina promoted me to co-host. Okay, are you seeing my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay, and let me make it the slideshow version. There we go. Okay. All right, Stan, go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning, members of the Architectural Review Board. Appreciate being with you this morning, first time. So as the chair said, the proposed project located at 739 Sutter Avenue, and the applications we have are the preliminary review, and also we have a SB 330 application as well. Project's located on Sutter Avenue, a little northeasterly of Middlefield Road. And the proposal, as I think was stated, to demolish an existing 8-unit apartment building and redevelop the site with the 12 units of for sale townhomes in 2 buildings. It's approximately 0.38 acre site, and surrounding uses are multifamily on the 2 sides and single family, both single family use and zoning to the rear of the site. We wanted to first do a quick review of 2 of the key state housing laws that are that affect the project, that are described in the staff report. The Housing Accountability Act limits the city's ability to deny or reduce the density of a project unless there are, if it would have specific adverse impacts to public health or safety if it was to be denied or lowered in density, or if there's no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate those specific adverse impacts other than disapproval or lower density. And the second is the Housing Crisis Act, SB 330, which has a combined effects. It freezes the development standards in effect at the time these prelim applications were filed. It enacts what's called the no net loss provisions, which mean if dwelling units are being removed, as in this case, there cannot be a loss in actual number of units, which of course there isn't in this case since they're proposing 12 new units. And it also limits the project to 5 hearings throughout the life of the application process. For the overview of the project, 2 of the 12 units are proposed to be restricted to low income, and that's based on the allowed by the zoning 8 units. This would actually be 25% of those base 8 units would be proposed for low income, and under the state and the city's zoning density bonus restrictions that are provisions that would allow 3 concessions under the state density bonus laws. And the applicants or the present application proposes a 50% floor area ratio increase. And they're also asking for concessions for such things as building height, front set and rear setbacks, side setbacks, street width, and site open space. And the project will also have to have a condominium subdivision to allow the for sale units. Here's the site plan, which shows the 2 buildings. The front building has 5 units. The rear building has 7 units, and the rear building is using tandem parking to allow for narrower units. These are the proposed elevations for the building, the 5-unit building, conceptual elevations with the showing the height. I think it's about 35 feet, and the various materials and colors will be described more by the applicant. The key consideration that we've identified as described in the staff report revolves around the private street design, in particular the street width. As a condominium development, it qualifies under the private street requirements of a minimum 32 feet width and a minimum fire lane width of 26 feet. The current design, however, shows 22 feet in the entrance driveway and then 25 feet between the buildings. It also assumes, as you can see there, the 11 feet on the site property and 11 feet shared driveway on the adjacent parcel, which will require an access easement to be established. So in terms of next steps following this preliminary review, as you're aware, the applicant may then choose to file his formal application. The SB 330 application has been deemed complete, triggering the 180 days within which the applicant can submit the formal application. That concludes the staff report for now.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the applicant.
Good morning. My name is Eric Muzzy. I'm a Planning Entitlement Manager for Dolan Group, and I'll be presenting the conceptual design on behalf of the applicant. Am I able to share my screen?
You should be able to. For the record, could you state and spell your name? And you have 10 minutes.
Great. My name is Eric, E-R-I-C, Muzzy, M-U-Z-Z-Y. Thank you to the board members. Thank you, Stan. You covered a lot there. So I'll be presenting the conceptual design, and we're here to listen and So starting off, we were able to meet with planning and with a representative of fire prior to this, and we've actually added a couple of items to this presentation based on their recommendations. Here is a conceptual rendering of the proposed streetscape from Sutter, and this was not included on the initial materials that were sent over. As Stan mentioned, the project site is located on Sutter near Middlefield, within walking distance of a number of transit stops. The existing parcel has 8 residential units, and as mentioned, a shared driveway with the adjacent multifamily building. The proposal is to replace these 8 units with 12 for sale units. And as noted, this is the site plan. A couple things to supplement what Stan had mentioned. These are garages loaded off of a rear drive aisle. Unit entries would be located along Sutter Avenue for the front building and along a shared walk for the rear building. I think we can probably get into some details to address the access concerns as a follow-up to that. As noted, here are the conceptual elevations. We added a materials list, which was another recommendation from planning. These are contemporary elevation styles, modern materials, incorporating vertical and horizontal siding in the conceptual design, metal railings. We were also, as part of the meeting with fire, able to talk about access requirements. And so we've tried to incorporate those requirements in the design here. I'd point out that there are a couple of access locations that are intended to be at a 27-foot maximum for ladder access to the roof. The top plate is proposed to be less than 30 feet, and therefore aerial access shouldn't be required. This is the 7-plex building. Similar materials, changing up the color palette and the orientation of the siding. And this is the building that proposes tandem garages along the rear. We have conceptual unit plans here showing the proposed 2 and 3 bedroom units, 3 stories. Here's again the rendering from the southeast, and another one from the southwest where you're able to see some of the shared driveway entry here and the drive that would access between the buildings. So to address the easement as a first item here, I'll go back to the site plan. There was an application put in 2018 that proposed a 4-unit residential plan. And that application showed a central drive within the site and proposed a fence along the western property boundary. The response from the city transportation department was that we should combine the access for both sites into one single driveway, which is the existing shared driveway. As mentioned, no easement exists here that we know of. And so in an attempt to respond to those comments, this design incorporates a shared driveway. It would maintain access to the adjacent carports that load off of it. The idea for, and I guess to address the widths, when we met with fire, what we had heard was as close to 26 feet as we can get is what fire would like to see for staging. And what we had heard was that, show them what we can propose and we could review and talk about that. And so the initial design here to try to accommodate as much side setback as we could was to show 22 feet on this drive. The idea is that the fire truck would be able to stage along the front, along Sutter, and have a hose pole around the front building, ladder access to the roof. For the rear building, we anticipate that a fire truck would nose in and stop at the end of the drive. There they'd have access around the building for a hose pole, and they'd be able to get ladder access up to the roof. For the easement, the applicant has been able to speak to the adjacent property owner and has verbally gotten indication that the easement should be acceptable. So we're proceeding as if that's the case. And in the most recent city comments that we received, it noted that a condition of approval would be the easement in this location. So that's the approach here. Thank you also, Stan, for talking about the density bonus request. At this point, we haven't put in the specifics of what's being requested, but we anticipate requesting waivers and or concessions as necessary to accommodate the density bonus project here. And I think that's it for starting out. We're happy to listen and respond to any questions and comments here. Thank you.
Thank you. This time I'd like to check if there's any member of the public who'd wish to speak. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. I just checked and it doesn't look like there's any members of the public that have their hand raised. Okay. Before I ask the board if they'd like to do questions, can we go around and do disclosures?
Should I stop sharing at this point?
If you like, sure. Can we do disclosures really quick? Start with board member Lou.
Sure. I visited the site on Tuesday, and also I've been doing some additional research into the neighboring properties on San Carlos Court. I looked at some fire insurance maps and aerial photos, and I looked at the zoning for those lots. So those are very small substandard lots. So those are limited to 1 story in height. And that's it.
Thanks. Board member Hirsch.
Yes, I visited the site and the neighborhood in general, and noted the distinctly different character of Sutter as it approaches Middlefield and his multiple dwelling versus the character of the residential neighborhood, single family, generally speaking. That's it for the moment.
Thanks. Board member Volte.
I visited the site last Saturday.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lee.
I also visited the site.
Thanks. And I also visited the site. Okay. Do we have any questions of the applicant or staff?
Question of the applicant. And, knowing that this is a preliminary and just looking at, what was provided, I wonder if you might just make a few comments, since typically at preliminaries, we do have a sense of open space, landscape, as it relates to the context, especially in housing. And so I just wanted to give you that opportunity. It's something that generally there is something written or some indication of the intention there. Is that okay, Chair Uzma, if I ask that question, or would you rather
Absolutely
not ask that question right now?
I think it's a fair question.
Okay, thanks.
It's up to the applicant how they like to answer it.
Thank you. Yes, happy to answer that question. So at this point, we have decks and porches proposed on the front building for private open space. The rear building would have decks on the second level for private open space. And there is a shared rear paseo where there would be landscape opportunities. We envision buffer landscape along the frontage. There's quite a bit of existing tree cover, and we intend to maintain those trees. The design is to maintain those. So we don't anticipate, we're hoping not to have to to remove or replant any of those frontage trees we'd like to maintain, and then just lower scale landscaping to help define the private versus public space there in the front. I think, and just to add on to that, I guess we don't have landscape included in the conceptual design team yet. So it's more like the area is being allocated, but not quite programmed at this point.
Any other questions of staff?
Yes, I do. So you noted the fire department access. Have you done any studies? I didn't see them in what was presented so far, of the actual turning of cars in and out of the garage, especially the ones against the property line?
We have not done those studies on this particular site. We looked at the driveway standards, which required a 10-foot radius in the intersection. It's not the public street standards, to be clear. It was the driveway standards for the city. And we observed those, and typically we'll pair with civil and they'll run the turning movements. Our experience is that a driveway of this depth, along with these aprons, should accommodate that turning movement to get in and out of all the driveways we've proposed, but we haven't run the turning movement yet.
Has transportation seen anything about that, what you've just discussed?
Only
not
if it's been routed.
Yeah, I don't believe we did.
So Chair, if I may.
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify that given the proposal is for the 12 condos, this does need to be on a private street. And so we do have the private street standards that are a little bit larger than a normal driveway. And so that is a deviation, a concession that the applicant is asking for. There's also several other concessions as shown in attachment B.
Is it possible for me to add on to that a bit?
Sure.
Just to clarify there, I think we would probably request waivers and concessions where necessary. Minor difference.
So I did. So we have the city staff has talked to the attorney's office. Waivers are in the city of Palo Alto are generally only used for bonus units, and so that's just the sort of detail that we have to work out with the formal application.
Thank you.
I'd like a little clarification, if I might, on whether this is RM20 as it is now zoned, or is it RM40? There's, I think, some confusion in the book here. It says 40 dwelling units. I think it says it's an RM20 zone. Is it not at the moment?
That's correct. I think the 40 dwelling units per acre is based on the general plan designation. The zoning is RM20 and is not proposed as a rezone. So zoning would be 20. That's where we're getting our 8 base units. And that's also, those 8 base units are being used to for the density bonus math as the base units.
Sorry, can we get some clarity on the height restrictions here?
So it is an RM20 district, and so all of those restrictions apply. The maximum height limit is 30 feet, but again, with this, and 35 feet is being proposed. So it is above the height limit, but affordable housing projects are allowed to ask for concessions. This particular project, as it's currently laid out, this is, all preliminary. They're proposing 25% low income, which gives them 3 concessions. So when you look at attachment B, and I can put it on the screen if you need, when you look at attachment B and you start seeing, front setbacks, rear setbacks, height limits, 3 of those things, they could have concessions and therefore do something greater than is allowed. Did I freeze? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you're a little frozen, but it's okay.
This is, Jody, this is the way the zoning is written right now, that they're allowed these concessions? This is not.
This is the way the state law is written,
Oh,
and
okay,
the
thank
state
you.
law was put into our code, yes.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Osma, a question for the applicant, please.
Go ahead.
To our applicant, I notice you have approximately 10 feet, 3 inches, maybe floor to floor height. So you basically have a 9'1" plate height in each unit. Given about a foot above the ground, that puts you at about 30 feet. Why does your building go to 35 feet in height? What else is up on top of the building?
So there would be a parapet. We imagine we would likely have a solar zone and potentially AC units up there. The other thing that gets built into the number there is the foundation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, assuming you're within about a foot of grade, which I imagine you would be in that neighborhood, I just don't see how you come to 35 feet, and it's, I think, going to be an issue. Okay, I don't see a section through the building here. Well, it's your chance now to tell me what's going on there. So you're envisioning a flat roof basically at the top of the top unit?
Correct.
And then parapet and mechanical stuff?
Yes, and I think what we have there is probably a 42-inch parapet. If we have the opportunity to decrease it, because we don't need any fall protection with anything mechanical up there, then we would love to reduce that height. I think what we're doing now is conceptually just massing out what we would anticipate if we do have that up on the roof.
Okay, thank you. And then also I have a series of questions for staff. Should I jump into that now, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so to the staff, what is the daylight plane restriction on the site right now?
So those, if you take a look at attachment B, and maybe I can share this.
You should bring that up.
Yeah, 1 second. Oh,
It's
sorry,
also packet page 20.
it only wants to share 2 screens. Okay, here we go. So yes, in your packet attachment B, you do have the zoning comparison table that we do with all of our projects. And you'll see that we try and bold the items that are not meeting the standards. Again, because this is, affordable housing project, they are allowed those 3 concessions as the project's currently proposed. And so we would normally want to see these kind of bolded items down to 3 items. There may be other things that come into play. If they have bonus units that can get waivers, there might be other things like that. We have not fully analyzed this project, at the prelim stage. But the daylight plane, sorry to answer your direct question, it's a standard daylight plane, up 10 feet and over the 45 degrees.
And that applies to the back of the property where there's R1 units on the other side of the fence?
It applies to the rear and to the side. When we're talking about daylight planes, RM20 and under is considered low density and has that more direct angle.
And board member Lou commented that the units at the back of this are actually substandard lots. Does that impact the criteria? A substandard lot would be one that's not allowed to ever go taller than 1 story, I think. Alex, can you verify I'm saying something that you said?
Yes, hold on a second. Yeah, that's correct. So there's a 1-story limit, and I think it's a 16 or 17-foot height limit to the ridge of the roof.
So we can take a look at the code again, but I don't believe that there is anything extra in that particular case.
But the daylight plane definitely exists at that back fence area.
Correct.
Okay, fine. My second question to staff, I guess this is rather leading, but the HAA Act says that if we were to deny or reduce the density, we have to find that there's a significant impact to the public health and welfare. I'd like to know how that's phrased.
So that's a pretty high bar to cross, is my current understanding.
I'm sorry, Jody. Adverse impact on public health or safety, right?
Yes.
In your staff report, you say that having a reduced size fire drive is what you would consider an adverse impact on public safety. Is that right?
Correct. If our fire department cannot gain proper access to this site, then yes, we would consider that to be a safety impact that fits in this definition. But I think that the applicant, with planning fire and the applicant have worked together, and at least verbally, we feel like there's some solutions. So I think we're on a better path for that going forward.
Okay, so then would it be something in your mind appropriate to argue that a dramatic change to the daylight plane that would essentially cast a shadow on the neighbor's property, could that be considered an adverse impact on public health?
It's something we could explore. It's not something that I had heard discussed quite yet.
So when we say public health, would that refer to the public in general or public as in owners of that strip of properties? Do you have any sense of what the consensus might be from the planning community?
This is all new state law, so we're learning this as we go. But I mean, the main ones are fire. If you were in a wildfire area up in the hills, if you were in a flood zone, but then we have sort of standard mitigation measures for flood zones. Those are the two big ones, fire and flood. But certainly, let us know your ideas and we'll bring that back to the attorney's office. Because again, this is all new regulation that, the whole state is learning how to implement.
Well, right now I'm just asking questions, but you can imagine it might lead someplace. Okay, my second line on the questions for staff again is that the state law requires that we do not reduce the density. The density is measured as housing units per area. Is there a definition of how large a housing unit has to be to qualify as a housing unit?
I'm going to lose my number right now, but you probably would know better than me. It's like 100, 150 or 250, something in that range is the minimum unit size.
Okay, because the applicant is proposing, the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are all 3-bedroom units, is that right? Mr. Muzzy, what is the distribution of your units on this project? Of the 12 units, what bedroom counts do you have, please?
I'm noticing now that I misspoke earlier. I was thinking that the Tandem units were 2 bedrooms. They are all, in fact, 3 bedrooms.
So you have 12 3-bedroom units proposed?
Correct.
Okay. And these units are proposed as for-sale condominiums. Currently, you have 8 units on the property. Are they rental or owned, homeowner-owned units right now?
So we may have indicated condominiums on the initial application. At this point, I think there's a possibility that they could be simple homes as well. Not totally sure. The current units on site are rental units.
They're rental units now.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going from 8 smaller rental units to 12 for sale 3-bedroom houses. Is that right?
That's the proposal. Yes.
Okay, that's my questions, Ozma. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, to sort of add to that, the floor area ratio is on the site right now is 0.5, 0.1 there, and it's going to 1.43. So how has that been determined? Or Jody has this, what's your reaction? What is the rationale for increasing FAR totally? It's sort of in an adjunct to what Peter's been asking.
Yes, there is a significant floor area increase. Again, the applicant is allowed bonus square footage and then also a concession square footage, I believe. And so those are details that that we need to work out. But with the new state regulations, a 50% bonus is not unheard of. So the
50%.
Yeah. So for this to, you know, to go up is certainly expected. How high is, you know, the details we have to work out with the formal, and, you know, as the applicant refines their project as well, it's many moving parts.
So it will be, we could expect that it might end up a kind of a compromise.
I'll let the applicant.
So, at this point, what we've tried to do is create a nice lifestyle within each one of these units. We've tried to hit that 12 unit number that's allowed using the 50% density bonus. And the floor area we came up with was less than a 50% bonus on top of the one that's allowed. I think if the site design and architectural designs are refined, we could end up at a lower number, or anywhere between this and 1.5. I mean, it could increase slightly if based on design concerns and development as well.
Any other questions?
I have two more questions that occurred to me, Ozma, if I could, please.
Sure.
For staff, the 25% threshold to get increased concessions and stuff, that would be, is that not based on the final size of the building rather than the initial allowable amount? If it's 12 units, shouldn't it be 3 affordable units to make 25%? How is that calculated, please?
That's a good point.
I'd be happy to speak to that if you'd like.
Go ahead, Eric.
So based on the state law, it's calculated on the base units. In this case, the base units are 8. So we take a percentage of that, and based on that percentage, there's a chart that describes how much of a bonus you receive. In this case, 25% of the base units at low affordability allows a 50% bonus.
I'm sorry, with all due respect, staff, have you confirmed this yourselves?
This is all stuff that we're in the process of learning, writing down, and is still, you know, the project itself is still a moving target. But generally, yes, we're in agreement.
And also, just to clarify, I'm a land planner and not a land use attorney. So this is all things that we vet with people who know what they're talking about as well. I'm doing my best to convey, you know, my best understanding of it. So.
Okay, thank you. My other question to staff is that, is it possible to request as one of the concessions a reduction in required parking?
I believe it is, but the law already has several parking reductions built into it, so probably not the most likely.
I mean, I'm looking at each one of these units is providing 2 parking places. Is that correct?
Yes, which actually I think is the allowed amount. There is or meets our standards. There is the 58% tandem, which is above our standards, but one of those things that actually is allowed in the law.
But if they wanted to go to a higher density, a greater unit count, would they be required to provide an additional 1 or 2 spaces per unit, or is it possible to request an exemption from that?
Well, they would need a concession for the more units, and they would need a concession for the less parking. So they would be, you know, using 2 of their 3 concessions. So unlikely.
Judy, I don't think that's completely right. So like in the density bonus section, there's a separate provision where the applicant can request a parking reduction. and it's a whole separate section of concessions for parking than it is for like development standards. So I think that they can go down to one space per unit, and that's their choice, not not the city.
Yeah, I guess I didn't make clear that they are proposing a little more than what's required currently as far as the number of spaces.
If I could add on to that, current density bonus law for 2 and 3 bedroom units requires 1.5 parking spaces per unit. If we had a 1 bedroom unit or a studio, we'd be allowed to go down to 1. In this case, we're providing private garages, so 1.5 spaces is not really feasible. We're meeting the standard by providing 2 spaces per unit at this point, is the approach.
Any other questions? I have a question for the applicant. So I noticed on the elevations, their finishes for building 1 and building 2 are slightly different. Building 2 is kind of a darker wood. Could I just hear from you what the design intent was with choosing to do that?
Yes. Could I possibly put the elevations on the screen?
Certainly.
Great. And secondarily, I'm wondering if Pedro Kang, who is the design director at Dolan, would be able to jump on and join the conversation here. If we don't hear, I'll do my best.
Yeah, he's here.
Good morning, board members, and thank you, Eric. My name is Pedro Kang with Dolan Architecture and Planning. Would you like me to spell my name?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. P-A-D-R-U. Last name is K-A-N-G. And I'm the director of design with Dolan. I'd be happy to kind of answer any questions with regards to the elevation concept that we have here. But the question about the materials, we were looking for kind of a way to create some modulation with the elevation and also accent that modulation vertically to break the horizontal feel of the architecture and also focus on the entry doors. So in this front elevation, if you will, we're looking at providing that accent material, which is a cementitious horizontal siding, similar to like a Hardy product. And that's at the entry. We have a deck as well. And then on the other sides or 2 sides of it, we're looking at proposing a combination of stucco in addition to where the windows are. It's the smooth Hardy panel and trim system. So right now there's 3 different materials that we'll be applying to each elevation. And then if you go to the next one, Eric, thank you. It's a similar approach, just done a little differently. We wanted to change the accent areas where the entries are and go with a vertical type siding to complement and not mimic exactly what's happening on the front building, because they are a little different in character, if you will, and we wanted to make them unique but complementary to one another.
Thank you. Okay. Last chance for questions. Going, and on. Cool. Okay, so I think we can bring it back to the board and hear some feedback. This is a study session. So shall we start with board member Hirsch?
Okay. Well, it's a project full of concessions. And it starts kind of requesting maximum amount of concessions. The assumption that, perhaps with the assumption that they'll be whittled down in some way. But I would say it makes it tough on us to evaluate a project like this, since it's such a new law, and since it will have such an impact really on the neighborhood in general. as I mentioned earlier, you know, the character of the street is quite varied, from multiple dwelling, two-story structures, to private residences sort of from the midpoint of the block onward into the neighborhood. And a decision about how this project is treated really impacts everything between this project and Middlefield. And it's a major zoning change, since all of these concessions are required. You know, where does it leave us, actually? We're working on the housing element at this point. The report won't be in for quite a while. When it gets in, and then council has to deal with it. Maybe it comes through us at that point, but a little hard to know exactly how that will work its way through. And yet here we are, facing up to the reality of the push from the state to make these major changes in just about every part of the zoning here. You know, frankly, it's kind of shocking. In terms of the aesthetics, I think the design is pretty nice. I like it. I like the proportions of it. I think just the mention just now of the change in the front to back idea, it seems like a good idea. In terms of the aspect of the project, I thought the comment about the perimeter landscaping issues, you know, we have access to the back unit on a narrow, presently, you know, as you presently get there, you have to walk a tight line between the building and the side yard lot line to get to the back without having to go through traffic lanes here. Just in terms of the fire access and the safety issues that Commissioner Bolte mentioned, you wonder, you know, you have an area that's going to be cars, or how are they going to be left in some way? Does the person who is the last person in the garage area there, does he leave his car outside, and therefore the access in terms of fire isn't all that great? And there's definitely no landscaping in the middle, so that we're having kind of balconies coming out over a traffic way. My personal feeling is that it's not exactly what we've been living with here in Palo Alto as a kind of a project, because we value our open space landscaping. There are other areas that I've visited that have it this tight, and with condominiums that sell very well, but in my mind aren't the greatest environment. So I have a hell of a lot of doubts here, and that they really involve the housing element study and how you treat this kind of a increase in zoning. And it sort of has to start from Middlefield and work its way back to the center of the block there. So perhaps in this area, it just seemed to me that it might be more reasonable to have a lesser FAR exception and more like two-family kind of dwellings instead of, and on less of them. Already, we haven't seen an actual FAR description here of what's there on the site right now. And I would say it's pretty dense. The open areas are very small. The passageways are very tight. The access to the back is, as the present one indicates, you know, not an attractive way to get in and out. So the idea of going up, making it higher, seems like a good idea, that maybe it would provide a better access. But overall, I think we're in a jam right now. I would not look favorably on this project the way it is designed. And I just think that we as a city have to come to grips with the entire planning very, very soon. It's a crisis. And it's very interesting that this is the indication of where we are right now, because this is where the push is. How does the city deal with this? Are there better sites to make denser projects? And is this an appropriate dense project for this particular block in this particular neighborhood? It's a planning study. It's a part of the, it's part of the housing element study that really needs to be addressed, not on a, oh, we can put units here or we can't put them there, but rather on a study of the what that density. I mean, this is a good example because this is what that density is really going to be like when it's implied, when it's when it's used in an area like this. What is it going to be like? You know, I think it's got to be examined right away.
Ursula, can I go next?
Yeah, go ahead, Board Member Balte.
Thank you to the applicant for putting this forward. I'd like to pick up where David left off because I pretty much agree with everything he said. But I think it's really important to note that this is just not the best place in town for us to be increasing housing density. I understand that's not one of the ARB findings, and it's not perhaps what planning wants to hear from the ARB, but I think this is a really crucial point to be making, that there are other places where this level of density would fit a lot easier than it does on this site. And we want to always be really cognizant of what's going on. We are in a crisis situation and we're forced with zoning to give concessions. But this is a good example of what's going on when you try to fit it right next to R1 zoning, R1 zoning that's permanently limited to 16 or 17 feet. It's a big deal. So to the applicant, I think there's ways you could reduce the height of the building by not having mechanical units on the roof, by not having a parapet. Find another way to do it to get it down to the 30 feet. And regardless of your zoning status, you'll be much better off if you don't try to push that one as well. That extra 5 feet makes a difference, in my opinion, just for your neighborhood compatibility. The houses all have a 28 foot height limit. So if you can get it down to 30, you're much better off. I am extremely concerned about the daylight plane impacts. I think that's the single greatest zoning concession that's being asked, especially at the rear. For people living in those units behind this, having this size of a building this close to the property line, I believe is an adverse impact on their health. And I think that's something the staff should both research and make an effort to figure out, because it's going to be a critical issue in many cases. The daylight plane is something that's well established and for a good reason. And I think that's something we have to work very hard to try to enforce on this site. I'm also concerned, as Board Member Lee mentioned, about the ground level open space, and that ties into ground level landscaping. Right now, the site has, I think, a nice amount of landscaping around it, some mature trees and stuff. Even walking around the back, there's a bunch of smaller scale stuff, hedges and bushes and things. And maybe that's just a matter of detailing out the landscaping, but I think you need to have places for these families to go down to at ground level. It's something that we've required on every other multifamily housing development, and I think you need to have it here. It's not enough to just have a deck off the unit. I suggest to the applicant that you look into reducing your parking somehow. There must be a way to get that average count to work out for the housing units. Because I think one of your issues is that your units are too big. It's not an issue of the density. 12 units is fine, but 12 3-bedroom units just seems large to me. You're pushing and pushing and pushing. So I suggest strongly that you consider making smaller units or greater variability of unit sizes, and find a way to reduce the parking. The parking is a lot of what drives the height and the mass of the building. You have all ground floor parking, so that pushes you up a floor. It goes on and on and on. I do think that the basic design style seems appropriate for the area, but I just need to see more information and a more refined design to really pass any kind of feedback on that. But the direction seems fine with me. I think that will fit into the neighborhood. So again, I want to end where I started. This is just not the best place in Palo Alto for this density of housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bolte. I'd like to go next.
Go next.
All right, go ahead, Vice Chair Lee.
All right, did I just speak over Alex? No.
I didn't see him speak.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'll start and just want to step back a bit. Thank you for bringing this forward. Really appreciate the staff report. Thank you, consultants. Stan, nice to meet you here, and appreciate the applicant's presentation as well and answering many questions. It is just wonderful to have a multifamily project presented to us at this time. I know this site quite well. You know, I know many families who live here, and you know, Hoover Park in the area, wonderful neighborhood commercial along Middlefield, access. This is the right kind of project for this site. I just want to tell you very in a confident voice, and I know that it's kind of not in line with my the other two board members who just spoke, but I'll just start with that general comment and then go back to the question that I had asked after your presentation related to landscape. And I know preliminaries do not require landscape plans or 3D and, you know, or materials boards. And so thank you for bringing those forward. The reason why I asked though about the landscape, one of the things that's really helpful in a preliminary and in a set that we receive is that, you know, everything in the presentation is actually in the set, first of all, and so there aren't kind of new things, but also context. And I think that is required in the preliminary. And so for me, I think this project, and I look forward to seeing it proceed and improve, but I just need a little bit, I think our board would be really helpful for us to see a little bit more context. I noticed that the photos that were taken were only of the existing site, and you know, there were 3 photos, but what's on the other side of the street? What's further down on Sutter? I think all of that information really would contribute to a full presentation so that we understand context. And we all been to the site, but these projects, you know, when you send something into the site, it's for the public and the community to understand. And so I think that that's one thing that could be improved. And that gives us a better sense of what's there. And, you know, sometimes you take photos that are just not right next to your project, but even further down and just give a sense of that architectural precedent, vocabulary, and landscapes involved there too. So I guess my next comment is looking at the plans. I just think the setbacks need to be revisited. And, you know, obviously there's this discussion, and I have full assurance that you will, as an applicant, work with the city in terms of, and then also the neighbors in terms of that shared easement. But, you know, just having been to other multifamily projects in this neighborhood and in Palo Alto, and I just want to say, you know, I think it's Loma Verde or, you know, not too far off in Midtown that there are other townhomes and projects, and I do think that side setback, particularly on the south side, when I see something that's, you know, 5-6 feet, and the massing of this proposal, I think that maybe that dimension should be might need to be revisited. So landscape provides some kind of a buffer and screening, but it's also very much needed in terms of the actual path, right? I mean, I know that you want emergency access to the rear of your lot, right? So that's a programmatic concern. But there's also maybe something missing here in terms of understanding, or for us to understand better in your elevations, just how those sides of the buildings provide comfort and actual, because I know that dimension of 6'6", and actually when you lay out the path, what is left over, right, in terms of that side property line. And then, you know, on the rear and the front, and I agree with Board Member Hirsch, I think he mentioned in terms of the architectural vocabulary, and how there is, I think Mr. Kong mentioned the variation between building 1 and 2. Absolutely. I mean, something to the, I think that's a wonderful strategy in terms of thinking about variation between two very large masses. I just want to push you in the direction of maybe thinking even more about even at a conceptual level in terms of architectural vocabulary and how that relates to massing and this, just contrast. Maybe there's a light, medium, dark that is maybe thinking about decreasing the verticality. And I know you're kind of battling that horizontality. Well, maybe that's where you ask yourself, why is this feeling like so blocky and horizontal and massive that we need to decrease that? And then where is the verticality such that it's uncomfortable? And then back to the landscape and context, I'm just wondering, in a townhome project, where are the shared mailboxes? Where are the safe places for kids to walk so they can get to the park? And where the bicycle is going to be? So then, and I think the telling of that story, even at the preliminary level, could be more. I mean, when I look at the first page of the set, I was a little bit, taken aback in terms of the project description. And so I just hope that, and I look forward to seeing it move forward. I think this is a project that is very much needed in this area. And this neighborhood has multifamily projects. The density is absolutely appropriate. This is what we need in Palo Alto. Somehow, though, this set didn't actually present itself, I think, in a way that maybe the design intention is moving forward in that direction. I just don't know. So those are my general comments. I'll just pass it over.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lee. Board Member Liu.
So, yeah, thank you for bringing the project forward. And I think it's great to have a very experienced and accomplished architect on this project. I think I'm most aligned with Board Member Lee. I think this is a perfect place for adding density. I think the site plan that you show shows the proximity to a lot of amenities, and it seems to make a lot of sense. I also think I do share concerns that Board Member Hirsch and Volte have mentioned. I actually think that you're requesting too many concessions is an indication that you've got the wrong solution. It's tricky, though, to me, is in an RM20 zone, which is generally like lower density, like a townhouse type project should be allowed in the zoning. The 3-story townhouse is economically feasible. We've seen that in other studies and planning studies here in Palo Alto, and you can go to Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, San Jose, and you'll see lots of this type of unit under construction at the moment. So I do have a concern that our zoning not aligned with the market. But nevertheless, the zoning is in place, and the density bonus is in place. I think my concern is that you just have the wrong solution. There are lots of townhouses in my neighborhood. They have, like the end units are often smaller and step down to the neighbors. So you might have like 2-bedroom units on the ends instead of 3 bedrooms, and it helps to make a transition. I think also there may be ways of exploring the roof lines to try to minimize that. So I think that there's a long way to go here. There's a lot of work to do here to get this to meet the context criteria. I was also thinking too, is if there was a way to reduce the parking. I realize this is kind of a very tricky one to do, and it's at the owner's discretion. But it seems to me like reducing the amount of parking would help reduce the massing. So if there's a way of doing that, and maybe it's a shared garage or maybe not, I think that's one opportunity to make the project work better. Like in my own neighborhood, really, there's about 20% of the renters and owners only have one car. You know, with the renters, the one car might not be a very fancy car, but I actually have neighbors who live in very expensive houses, and the one car is a very expensive, you know, electric car. So it seems to me that should be under consideration. It would help with the massing. So I think that's all that I have to say on this one. It seems like we need a lot of work. You're requesting too many concessions, but you guys are very accomplished architects. I think if you put it to work, and that you'll be able to come up with a site-specific design for this that will, you know, that will work. So I would look forward to seeing this come back to the board. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Liu. Okay, I guess it's my turn. So I would say that I would agree with Board Member Liu and Vice Chair Lee that I do think this site needs this project. You know, this part of Middlefield Road is getting developed commercially. I actually went to the Safeway right afterward, after visiting the site, and just noticed how different it performs versus the other Safeway that's on San Antonio. And part of me thinks density is one of those reasons. And I do think this project will really bolster the site and make it really successful. So a lot of people have talked about the zoning issues, and in general, you know, I'm mostly in agreement with what has been said about too many concessions. My main comments are going to be about the materials on the building design. In general, I maybe disagree with a few members of this board that I actually think the design could use a lot more work in terms of aesthetics. What I think is really successful is actually what is labeled as the front elevation of building 2. And what I found was a pity is that that's actually an elevation that nobody will really see, except for the units in the back that will be in the shadow. But I was trying to ask myself, this elevation is so different from all the other elevations on this project. And part of the reason I think it's successful is because in terms of, you know, Vice Chair Lee mentioned light, medium, dark, but I think there's also this like light, dark, and then a pop of color. And I think those red doors are doing that in this, which I think is successful. And then I think also the massing modulation of these like vertical wood, they're almost like wood totems that have these, they have this presence, and they bring, they sort of come forward and create this depth in the facade that I think the other elevations are not doing. And I think that's what's really successful in building 2. So initially I had a note where I was like, just flip building 1 and building 2 and have that facade be front. But instead I would actually encourage the design team to explore that concept in all of the buildings, all the building elevations where there is more of this depth of like solid and void, light and dark, glassy and solid. I think you're starting to get there with that elevation. And I do think that that would look much more stunning on the street than the current building 1 front elevation. The other thing about that elevation with the shading elements is that they don't look like they would be very effective because of where they're placed. And so I would encourage the design team to consider a different shading element that might be more effective and might also add another aesthetic element to this building. Building 1 palette also acts really differently than building 2. Like I mentioned, building 2 has sort of light, dark, and then the pop of color, whereas the building 1, it's all sort of the same different shades of beige. And I might recommend having a similar you have a light and a dark, but maybe your pop is like a sage or like something different to give it that contrast and visual interest. I do like the wood tones, and I do think in this area, it'll be really great. You know, visually, this area sort of aged a little bit. And so I do think this will be really refreshing on that street. So I would kind of encourage the design team to go in that direction. I do appreciate the rendering. The only issue is that there were trees in front of the facade, so the rendering wasn't really helpful as much as it really ought to have been. Next time you come around, I would recommend, you know, screening those trees, making super translucent. I want to see the building and see what it looks like on the street. And I know I'm not going to just see trees. And I also agree with a comment that a section would be helpful, a section to see how those tinier lots to the north are affected by the building. I agree with the comments about reducing parking. I would support that. I feel like in this day and age, you know, automated vehicles are going to be a thing. Uber, Lyft, Safeway's right there. You know, my husband and I, we live off of one car just fine. So I think less parking might be the right choice. And yeah, so I will, and then the last thing was about the fire lane. I sort of had some confusion about that, but it sounds like it's just a concession item. I want to make sure that also functionality that works. Obviously, I'm sure everybody cares about that. Those are the bulk of my comments. Any other thoughts from the board?
I just had one quick thought from your comments, Chair Thompson. And so, you know, moving forward, you know, can't wait to see this project move forward. I wonder if you might consider the path of travel or just the daily activities of users on the site in terms of, I ride a bike and now I'm going to go to work. And how am I going to go? And cars are coming, trying to get their kids to school down that driveway. And then I just want to put it out there in terms of trees and the dimension for a tree and where that might be on the site. And not the existing trees, but then how is that added to the site? And then just be a big push for elevations that come forward with the scale of a person and landscape. And so we understand the context a little bit more.
Ozma, I wonder if we could get the designer to address. I looked more carefully at the back building front elevation. It's a building 2 7-plex front elevation drawing. And just the window treatment is very different than the rest of both buildings. And those all windows are facing, you know, they're 11 feet from the property line overlooking the R1 single-story housing. So I've got to think there's a big impact on both the privacy, but also that it's so different on design. I wonder if the architect, if you're willing to let them speak to their thought process on that facade. The one facade you pointed out that you like more, and I can see what you're talking about. It might be also just the way the windows are treated, but that's going to conflict with a lot of privacy issues.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask the applicant at the end of sort of our conversation to speak. They have any comments, but
that's okay. You can do it however you think. I want to point out then that I think, as handsome as that elevation is, those windows are a significant privacy impact to the neighbors.
And part of me wonders, because it's on the north side, there might be a desire to have more daylight into those units. That was part of the reason I thought maybe it was designed like that, because you can see on the building 1 5-plex front elevation, the one that's facing the street, the windows are a bit smaller and they're shading elements.
Yeah, that's the south elevation.
But I do think just, I think I mentioned this before, but I think there's something about the partie of that front elevation of building 2 that is much more successful than the front elevation of building 1. But I am curious to hear.
I'd like to jump in here for a comment too. I'd like to second sort of Alex's points about the massing of the building, because here we are talking about incredible detail when we're really at a very, very preliminary stage. we haven't really pinned down issues like what is the ultimate FAR going to be. But it seems to me that Alex's comment about massing is very applicable right now based on the discussion we've just been having here. It certainly is possible if you have a smaller unit in the back that you could have some kind of rooftop decks where you would have step back situations so you're not looking directly into somebody else's yard. I think there needs to be a much bigger study of the formal aspects of the whole project. On the street, it could be a 3-story structure because privacy isn't the issue there. And on the back, it could be stepped down so that the massing is quite different. Without talking about the detail at this point, I think it's unreasonable to actually make that, make a lot of comments about the detail when you really ought to be talking about the whole formal aspect of the whole project. And that's based on the massing, and it's based on some regulations that might well apply to a project like this. So I appreciate Grace's comments about bringing it down to the human scale. And that also is part of what this massing discussion could be about as well. So this is a preliminary in some way, and obviously everything is being challenged here. So why not challenge the massing in some way that deals with privacy, deals with scale, deals with ground floor access, open feeling. You know, if it started with 2 less units, that would be a big improvement. If it started with 2-bedroom units, and if the garage, for example, was the 1-car garage, and then there was, and we've seen schemes like this, and the ground floor was actually a bedroom or guest room or whatever, you'd have a different kind of a project here. And it could, in massing, have a better relationship to its neighbors. So I think it needs to be developed that way first before talking about all of the change in details that have been applied. I think actually the designers are pretty damn good here, that the design of it, proportions of it, and the change from the front to the back are good ideas. And that could also work with massing changes, as Alex suggested. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Oh yeah, sure. We'll let the applicant talk to some of the comments on the design.
Hi, good morning again. I had my video off and sound off, obviously. This for me, like going into a board like this for architectural review with board members like yourselves is always welcomed and very productive, because I had my video off, but I was nodding, shaking my head. Yes, I do agree with comments that were made for sure. Can we look at massing? Absolutely. Can we look at colors? Absolutely. Can we talk about why the architecture is a little bit different from one building to the other? Absolutely. But for us, this is definitely a starting point. They are conceptual designs. This isn't a formal application, as you all know. And, we do have some work ahead of us. So we're taking notes. And when you see this again, we're hoping that you can see that we're taking your comments to heart. And we're happy to move on to the next step. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any last comments?
I would just add to that, yes, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking all the time and putting all the thought into this. And indeed, we have been taking notes, and we'll work to incorporate as much of what we've heard here as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alrighty. Well, I guess we can move on from that item since no formal action is requested. Do folks want to take like a 10-minute break? Since it's almost 10 o'clock. I'm seeing one nod. That's a majority. 2 nods. Okay, let's come back at 10:07. Thanks. Don't forget to mute yourself, Board Member Hirsch. Hello there. Looks like we're still waiting for board member Hirsch. Here you are. Okay, are we all back? All right. Cool. So let's resume. So our next item is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the use of teleconferencing for architectural review board meetings during the COVID-19 state of emergency. Jody, I'm not sure if you want to let the board know what we're doing.
Yes, I will let you know what we're doing. I don't have a fancy presentation or any of that sort, but you do have your packet items and I can run through it a little bit. This is going to start to be a regular thing that we need to do. You know, we all know that in early 2020, you know, we had the pandemic. We still have the pandemic, but we were more in a state of emergency. Starting in September of 2021, the governor amended the Brown Act to be what it is today, which is to allow local policy bodies to continue to meet by teleconferencing during a state of emergency. But we do need to pass these sort of monthly resolutions that confirm there's still a state of emergency in our local area. And so that's what this is. And it will just become a monthly occurrence so that we can continue to do the teleconferencing. And then we may change it a little bit when next year we are looking to go to a hybrid fashion, you know, where some of us would be in person and but we would still have the Zoom abilities for people to teleconference in as well. But that's not starting until January-ish. So for the moment, we're still 100% teleconference, and that's what this resolution is for.
Jody, do you need one of us to make a motion to adopt the resolution?
Yeah, I would appreciate it. And then ultimately, myself and the chair of the ARB, Chair Thompson, would sign the resolution. So yes, we do need a vote.
Okay, I will conduct a vote then.
We need to make a motion first.
Oh, sorry.
Jody, can you clarify, this is something we'll need to do every month?
Correct. That's, I believe, the way the state has set it up, that it needs to be renewed because we need to ensure that there's still a state of emergency in our local area.
And what if we don't meet on a given month? Do we then have to convene just to pass this thing?
No, in the resolution itself, it talks about if the board does not meet within the next 30 days, the liaison is directed to place a resolution on the agenda of the immediate following meeting. So whatever next meeting, a month or whenever the next meeting is.
Okay, I'll move that we approve this as presented.
I'll second.
All right, let's do a vote.
Okay, great. Chair Thompson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lee?
Yes.
Board Member Baltai?
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch?
Board Member Hirsch, you're muted. Are you able to unmute?
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Board Member Liu?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0.
Awesome. It's kind of funny that the mute thing happened while we were passing that. Anyway. teleconference. Okay. Great. So our next item is the Arb Awards. So I guess last we picked up, we went through all of the research that we had done. We did a short list, which is in our packet. And I think the goal for today is to try and get as far as we can in terms of creating categories and nominees. And we had discussed maybe voting, but maybe that's too much. But yes. So I guess in terms of, I want to ask staff, is there anything that that you guys had prepared for this specifically, or were we just going to take it up as our own discussion?
Yeah, I think I wasn't able to get to as much of this as I wanted to. I've actually had Sam furiously working in the background as we speak, pulling up some aerial images. So we do have our original photos. I believe we have some new aerials, and Sam can share those. And then I know that Grace also had a few additional pictures of Vice Chair Lee that I can bring up as well as the discussion goes along. And so Sam, there we go.
Oh.
So this is the shorter list of projects because we had narrowed it down to this 30 some odd. And we can go to the, maybe if you can just run through the first project. Yeah, so we have the Bowman School. And then Sam, what were you able to do for aerials? Yeah, oh, wonderful. So we do have some aerial views. So I don't know if you just want to run through these or, you know, slow or fast. You can let us know, Chair.
Maybe let's go through each one and maybe the group can kind of discuss some thoughts on it and what we think is successful and maybe what we think it could be eligible for.
I'd like to make a comment about how we make a decision here, because this is still a long list. So I was wondering if it wouldn't be better for us to say, well, it has to be nominated by a larger number of us rather than just one for it to be considered, because that might pare down the lists considerably.
That's a good suggestion. So you're thinking we'll go through the slideshow and see if there's more than one person who might support nominating.
Well, the only issue I see there, and I'm happy to follow that direction, that makes sense too, but I wasn't on the review on many of these, just so you know. So it would be good if we flip through and if somebody wants to nominate and just say why they're nominating, so then, you know, I can, you know, just see, because I think there might be some that just one person nominates, but then they say a couple comments that makes it feel like maybe somebody else wants to, you know, say yes to that category suggestion.
That's a great idea. I think maybe let's do both. So maybe we'll go through each one and maybe we can see if there's any support, what the case might be, and then maybe revisit support. Does that sound good to the board? Okay.
So Chair, if you can just let Sam know when to advance the slides, and I will take some notes as far as, you know, when. I'll just take notes on the votes.
I had one other question, is that there were Junior Museum, which I photographed, had a very important picture on the inside, only the outside. So, I mean, I guess I'll find out if you included, but actually, did you broaden the ground level photo views that we took to include more of what we took?
Unfortunately, so I had entered all the pictures that I had. I think I have one last email from Grace that I have not been able to add. I didn't think I had any extra pictures from you, Board Member Hirsch, but I'm happy to be wrong. So no, nothing has been added about the museum itself. So that might be
Have
one.
to look back through my photos to just see. I'm sure I took some. And what I saw was just the street views so far. But so when we get to it, I can comment on it then.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so let's start with this Bowman School Annex. Were there any thoughts, any support for this potentially being in a category?
I'd like to say that I think one of the really successful parts of this project is not at all shown in this photograph. There's a recessed group area behind these buildings that I would love to see photographed and consider that as part of whether this merits an award.
If we go to the next slide, Sam, he was able to get the aerials there. Oh, this is, oh, sorry, it's showing the old, yeah, that's going to be our problem.
I
Does
agree with
anybody
Peter.
have access to that image?
I remember vividly from design review, it was a really cool thing.
So in order to get the plan sets, it would take a lot more effort. And so I think we need to whittle down the list a little bit more. And then I could go get some site plans and things.
Well, you know, what I think Peter was saying is that this particular project, in order to make a decision about it, you really need to see more. So I agree with that.
Maybe we should just keep it on the list for now and note it that maybe we want to get another photograph or two. I think not the plan set, Jody, but we want to see what's been built. Maybe one of us can go over there, or maybe they can supply something.
Okay. And I'm hearing at least Board Member Bolte and Board Member Hirsch supporting that.
We're not trying to make final decisions, rather to just pare the list down a little bit.
Yep.
I think that's most realistic for today. Yeah.
Well, like 5 of them, I think we should at least consider.
I think hopefully the next time, or at least before the end of the year, I think we'd like to finalize. So we have 2 more meetings potentially where we can talk about this again.
Why don't we run through, it would help me just to see the photos once more, just to refresh my memory too. I don't have a visual image of every one of these.
I think we're going to do that. That's what Sam's slideshow is.
Okay, so Sam, the next one. So 260 Cal Ave, and we'll see what aerial he was able to grab. Okay, so just, yeah, Cal Ave.
This one is, it just says outdoor seating. Is it just the outdoor seating part of this project?
It looks like that was the most recent application.
But there was the whole restaurant. Oh, that was part of the initial building construction?
So the original building was intended for ground floor retail.
That's right, it didn't have a restaurant.
And they made modifications to the ground floor to make it a restaurant.
Yeah.
And the parking in the back of the restaurant. So yeah, so this one is kind of a funny one. It's not the whole building. I think we're not looking at the whole building, because I think that the building is older.
Yes, that's right.
Is there any support to keep this one?
Not just a restaurant, no.
No. Okay, so I think we can cross this one off.
Okay. So the next one would be the 4115 California Avenue, which is the Stanford residential subdivision. It had single family homes, townhomes, multifamily. I mean, it's a huge neighborhood.
Jody, I just sent you just an aerial site plan of the, I think it was a model of the proposed. That was one of the photos that I sent you. And then I'll just add that I thought maybe to keep this one on the list. Yet I am a fan of its kind of site plan and neighborhood connectivity, just in terms of the 3 neighborhood streets that come into it, and the also the massing and the landscape, the native drought tolerant landscape throughout. I think it's a high quality project. I'm not sure what the category best to describe this, and I wasn't on the review. But Jody, if you did want to just show the aerial, it does show the just how the project sits within its context a little bit better than this aerial.
Yes, 1 second, I can steal the screen from Sam.
And I recall that maybe Alex can tell us more. I mean, because in terms of the review, we had limited, there was ARB limited, but I'm just looking at, you know, if you see where the crosswalks are, that connects back to College Terrace. And then there's, you know, just in terms of the massing, I don't have, I'm pointing at it, you can't see my screen, but do you see how the modern, larger scale buildings sit? Yeah, thank you, sit back, and the more kind of traditional architectural styles
fitting the community.
The amount of open space that they've landscaped and done, you know, to high quality, I thought worth pointing out.
Yeah, they definitely did try to step down the densities, you know, towards Cal Ave here, where we have single family homes on the other side.
I've been at this project and a couple of times now, and I think it's worth keeping on the list for that reason, because it really deals with the context very nicely, in neighborhood context. The way in which the streets become more casual once you get into the project are quite well done. I think the idea of how to deal with the massing is well done too. Site planning is significant here.
And I'll just add one thing. I agree with you, David, but in the center of that green is a community open space.
Yes.
And so there's actually 2 tiers of open space, both playground, which you see is the bright color purple and pink. Do you see that? And then it steps down and there's a pool, kind of an outdoor terrace community center, as well as a lawn. I'm not a big fan of lawns, but in any case, it's I guess that relates to site plan or landscape.
Well, I note that the little cul-de-sacs are really quite nice too. They sort of separate division of number of houses per, you know, there's the continuum here with a road all the way through, but then there's some little cul-de-sacs. So the variety of planning ideas is interesting too, as well as what you're mentioning about the open space in the middle.
I'm curious to know what the ARB application was, because we don't review master plans, do we? Or is this we do?
It had a zone where we were able to just look at limited development standards.
I see. Okay.
Right, so I think we should keep this on the list, but I think I would argue that we should limit it to context, because we really didn't have any say whatsoever on the site plan. We weren't allowed. There's a development agreement between the city and Stanford, and so we were only limited to that the California Avenue frontage matched the existing houses, and then we were able to review the materials on the 2 condominium buildings. That was it. So no park, no pool, or any of those kinds.
I mean,
well, that's
given
too
that,
bad.
I don't know if I should support keeping it on the list because the other things I mentioned were not in our review. So I'm not sure now.
Yeah, that raises it for me too.
Matching the context was really critical in getting community support. So it was a really big deal to get those houses to blend in with College Terrace, and it was not easy to achieve. So, and I think they went through 2 architects to get where we are today. So it wasn't an easy task.
Okay, I'm just going to pull off my support of keeping it on the list, though, because the things that I mentioned were really more on the interior part of the project and the site planning. And actually, I was more in favor of the housing type to the rear, which, you know, I don't know. I think we should probably take it off. I mean, in my support anyways. If others want to keep it on, that's fine.
The housing types, the condominium housing type, has some really unusual features. Like, I've been studying the floor plan for that. They really tried very hard to incorporate really large decks, having privacy, having corner units, single loaded corridors. They really tried to make it more like a house and less like a double loaded corridor or apartment building. So there are things there. Maybe we can, you know, acknowledge that there are things there without maybe without giving it a full award.
Is this our judgment is on what's in or what's out? Does that really depend upon how much review we did, or does it depend upon the quality of the project that's presented here? And we had something to do with it.
We have, yeah. I think it's probably up to us. I think the only thing I think in the bylaws is that it has to be a project that the ARB reviewed. So
you can fudge that a little bit by saying we'd had something to do with it.
It seems to me that like multifamily housing is a really important issue, and we don't have very many.
That's right.
Good options, and this is probably the best one. So,
it certainly will be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I vote for keeping it in and explaining that while we didn't review the entire all aspects of the project, we find it to be something very compatible with neighborhoods, and it deals with whatever, you know. I can see us writing a text, including Grace's comment about the interior space, the public areas. You know, it's a major, this project.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
support
really
keeping it in as well after hearing both of the background. Thank you.
And Alex, did you also want to support keeping it in?
Yes, I will support that.
Okay.
I support that as well. Keep it in for now.
Okay, then I'm going to stop sharing so we can go back to Sam's presentation.
Just get a better idea of what we reviewed on that one.
Yeah, definitely. When we cut this list in half, hopefully, then I'll be able to do a full round of research for you and that sort of thing. So the next one's 400 Channing. This was a 4-unit project in SOFA. So 2 units in the front, 2 kind of granny type units in the back that were above a garage.
The aerial still looks like it's construction.
Yeah. So that's why we're gonna need to go get plans and things. But it is, you know, an example of, you know, a house in the front and a granny unit in the back above a garage. So if that's, you know, something that you're interested in.
Yeah, if I could say to this one, I think that their elevation along Channing is actually particularly not well done. And I'm not sure that shows up too much in the photos and stuff, but I think they did a pretty terrible job of putting a bunch of mechanical equipment. In this photo, there's a palm tree on the left. There's 4 really beautiful trees there, and they pretty much ignored that opportunity to really celebrate that aspect of it. So no, I can't support this.
It's just not photographed, the mechanical unit.
Yeah,
Well,
on the side street there.
Yeah, I tried to take the best photo I could find of it, but I'm just pointing that out. I think we even had trouble with Jody, with your department, having to go back and make them put shielding on some stuff they put on the side of the building.
There was some equipment they weren't aware of that had to be added later. And yes, we had to figure out how to screen it and those sorts of things. Yes.
I think I could share my screen really quick.
Sure.
So Peter, are you talking about these guys?
Yes, that facade right there. Not just that equipment, but the whole thing is just not, I don't know, to me, that's not an award-worthy piece of architecture.
You're very good, Peter.
And is this the granny unit back here?
Yes. Yeah, so above the garages.
Yeah, okay. I mean, contextually, it looks contextual, but yeah, I didn't notice that.
And that's Channing, right? So that's Channing elevation there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly it should be a major. Yes, it falls apart.
What's the comment, Board Member Lou?
Yeah, Jody, do you know, did they cut down the oak tree that was in the front yard?
I know we saved a bunch of trees on this one. Oh,
Yeah,
the corner
but,
looks a little odd, doesn't it?
I have a recollection that there was a big oak tree there.
I will go check.
How sad.
This is very, very helpful.
I have
this
the
view.
plans. Yeah, I can look at the plans.
I'm hearing no votes for this address, though.
No votes.
I think Peter
Okay.
set the tone on this one.
So Sam, the next one is 611 Cowper that David took pictures of. 4-story mixed use.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I like that building very much.
Same here.
I do too.
I really like the way it organizes so nicely as a modern building with a stair tower elevator thing to the left, and it's just scale is really everything there.
The very rich materials too. That whole facade is terracotta tile done as a cladding. Incredibly innovative use of that material.
Uh-huh.
It ties together to old Palo Alto without at all replicating or being tried about it. It's really a very successful building, I think.
Yep.
This is a ground up building.
Beg your pardon?
This was a ground up building, like a new construction.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds like we have.
This one has already won an AIA award, right?
I don't know. Has it?
Yeah, no, it has.
Uh-huh.
That's good to know.
Just very successful. And so, a lot of other buildings in town just don't have this kind of quality of scale.
Okay. Sounds like that's a keeper.
Yeah. I guess maybe I just need to see it in person.
So the next one is 405 Kurtner, 6 dwelling units. Grace took these pictures.
I wasn't going to nominate it, and sorry about the car and my photos.
You don't want to nominate it?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
I'm not a fan. However, if you want to keep it, that's fine. We don't have to discuss it now, but I wasn't planning to nominate it.
Because you're not a fan, can you be, well, whatever. Do we have any more?
I think right now we're just trying to get through the list and say which.
Yeah.
I think it's nice. I would support it.
Yeah. I do support having housing, though. If we can get an award for a house.
Based on this photo, I support it.
Yes, me too.
Based on the Google Maps 360.
There's something you're hiding from us, Grace, but that's okay.
Okay, I was
very picky.
the last
I'm
one.
trying not to nominate so many, so.
Uh-huh.
Hey, if they deserve it.
Okay, I hear we're keeping it for the moment.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the next one is 180 El Camino, which is, it was the phase 3. It was all of the North Face, Victoria's Secrets, those sort of additional buildings there that were added onto the shopping center.
Canopy part of it?
I think we actually we actually took this off the list last time, but I think David had voted for the Vineyard Vines, which is also part of the phase 3.
We do. Vineyard Vines is don't believe it's part of, maybe it is part of phase 3. It's on the, okay, here we go.
It's in the front in the curve.
Oh, that where is that? That's at the corner here. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Alex. Yeah, that's such a nice facade.
I think if we go one more slide, Sam, we have the Vineyard Vines.
Oh, that's so nice.
Okay, so is that a no for the north face half, but maybe yes for Vineyard Vines, at least keeping it on for now?
Yeah, I would keep Vineyard Vines on and a no for the passageway.
Is there any support? We need 2 votes.
Can we see the Shake Shack building first? Because I want to try to pare it down.
Yeah, we do have 3 for the shopping center. So Sam, if we go 1 or 2 more slides.
Pretty damn nice.
I think this is the better of the 2, David. Why don't we just stick with this?
Oh, I just like the detail of the Vineyard Vines, the corner, the roundness, the window treatment. You know, there's just a lot of thought in that, proportions. And this is a very different, it's very nice in contrast. Very nice.
I would support Shake Shack, but I wouldn't support the Vineyard Vines. But is there any, I want to see if there's a second for Vineyard Vines.
No.
Yeah, I've got David for Vineyard Vines so far and 3 people for Shake Shack.
Yeah, it's too bad. Okay, I'm down.
Okay, well, the shopping center gets something. Maybe they're still on the list.
Is the upper part of the Vineyard Vines, or is it just the lower part?
It is the whole building. I mean, we reviewed the whole building for sure. If you go back to Vineyard Vines, Sam.
So, Uzma,
Mm-hmm.
the second floor, they added office space at the shopping center. I think it's the Stanford Healthcare has offices there. So that's something new in the shopping center.
So it's not okay. All right. I definitely am okay then not supporting this.
Oh.
Okay.
How you can say that? It's such a nice job, such a nice feel to it.
Come on, David, look at this thing.
It's so boring.
Baloney.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on to 2515 El Camino, which is a 3-story mixed-use development.
I was there recently. You know that if we don't have photographs of the back of the building, the way the parking has worked, the feel of the building from the back as well, you know, we're missing something there.
I took a bunch of photos of the way it had this passageway going through in the back. It does. Yeah, there we are.
There we are. Good.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of really nice detailing in this, the way this is done.
It's on the list.
Yeah, I could support keeping this one.
Is that 2 votes, did I hear?
Yeah.
There's 3, I
3
think.
votes. Okay.
I just tried to Google Maps this and I couldn't find it, but it didn't look like I found it. Anyway, I'll look for it later, but the picture looks good, so I'll keep my vote.
Okay.
Fire station definitely needs to be on the list. It's a very good building.
Beautiful.
2
I'll vote
votes,
for that one.
3 votes. Okay. Sludge Facility. If you go to the aerial, Sam, were we able to pick up? I mean, I'll have to make sure what exact building it was on the Sludge Facility, but it's kind of back in the center, I know. So.
It's in the center, and it's kind of on axis with the entrance drive.
Mm-hmm.
Do we not have any photos of it though?
This is my mistake, actually. I took the wrong photo a bit ago and I didn't take an updated photo. But yeah, is there any?
I think we owe it at least to look at a photo of it first.
Okay.
Well, it's, you know, it's too bad because access here is not very attractive to begin with.
You can drive through that gate. It's not locked up. I remember doing the review on this and just driving right in.
Okay.
There's no limitation. You can go right up to
Okay, no, I just am saying that it's not a handsome entry at all here, but
no, it's not part of the building.
So it's too bad we don't see it.
A fairly industrial building, but they had some interesting core 10 steel detailing on it, if I remember. And a really large entrance door for the trucks to drive into, which we debated whether it was appropriate or not. Do you remember, Alex, when we looked at this one?
Yeah, I remember this one.
Do you think it's
So
got?
I'll go and take a picture. How's that?
Okay, that's good.
Let's get a photo at least, yeah.
Okay. So then the Embarcadero, the Baylands Boardwalk.
No.
I would support this one.
Me too. I think that for Palo Alto to deal with the way it's doing on the Baylands, this is a big plus.
Yeah.
But it's a plus for architectural purposes or because it's a boardwalk where we want a boardwalk?
No, I would say architecturally, it's actually really interesting when you go there. I mean, these 4 pictures don't really cover it, but so the reason
these building shots, the top 2 have nothing to do with this project. All 3 of them. It's only the boardwalk itself that was rebuilt.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's not the actual building?
No, not the building. No, this was a redo of the boardwalk.
Oh.
I mean, it is a nice.
Yeah, it's just that lower,
I think
the lower left.
not enough.
The lower left. It was actually done really well.
The boardwalk. Yeah, it's a really nice boardwalk, actually. I walked all the way, the quarter mile or whatever it is.
Okay, it's a lovely boardwalk, I agree.
But by itself, it isn't probably enough for an award.
Well, the idea is to cut the list down by 2/3 or something, so.
Okay, are we down to 1 nomination?
No, we had 2 so far.
David, are you keeping yours or pulling yours?
I think it's the whole ensemble that makes it really great. Adding to the boardwalk is a good idea, of course, and allowing the public to have that kind of way of getting around is wonderful. But it's not much architecture, really. I don't think it's enough.
Alex, do you have support for this or no?
You really want this one, Ozma?
I'm okay being the only one. I just want to make sure that there wasn't support that I didn't hear.
I'll throw my support behind it. I'll go walk on the boardwalk once more.
I'm happy to go walk it. I just want
I
to
have
point
to
out
admit,
Me too.
out 5. So, and we're accepting something.
Hold it until we all go there.
Let's give it another crack. It's only
So,
3.
I mean, it's going to
Okay.
be a hard meeting next meeting.
Okay. So next one is 135 Hamilton. I'll keep pushing us forward. So how many votes do we have for this one? And so we've got a new aerial as well.
Can I give some history on this one?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so, we have a ground floor retail requirement downtown, typically. The city removed the ground floor retail requirement on this location as well as some others. They had a committee and everything to review that. And then as soon as they did that, then Keenan proposed this project. And they came to the board with 2 units up on the top floor, like 2 penthouses. And then I think through subcommittee review, it would actually change. So it's just 1 giant penthouse up on the top floor. And the rest is office.
I would like to join in here and question the entire concept of this kind of rusticated stone exterior. it bothers me. I mean, the proportions may be nice and some of the detailing is very nice, but just this kind of return to rusticated stone seems to me to be a bit out of place.
I've always found at night the stone is uplit with lights in the sidewalk. It's extremely dramatic. It's very carefully detailed.
Is there any support to keep this?
But no, I don't support it.
Me neither.
All right, off it goes. So this is the facade change for Nobu.
Yes, this was for the actual larger, Nobu facade and some minor hotel changes as well.
This is not the restaurant, right?
It's the hotel part of the restaurant.
I do think this facade looks really nice at night.
Yes, it does.
It's a beautifully detailed out facade. And how about the building to the new thing to the left of it? Is that
the Nobu Annex or addition? Yeah. I don't believe is complete yet.
So that's really the dramatic architecture, I think, in this whole project. And that's not eligible quite yet.
We maybe have a category for like nicest material or something. Because I do think you know, this wall at nighttime is probably one of the nicer walls.
I'm all for categories like that, materiality or exterior renovation materials. Or
Alex, Lou, do you remember, wasn't there supposed to be a bench where that planter is on the right-hand photograph? Remember Win Firth was all over that?
Yeah, yes, I forget what, we ran out of space or something. There was a lot of conversations about that.
I would vote to keep this one.
Okay, I got one vote. How many more?
I'll vote. Keep the category.
2 votes. Okay. Next one is 261 Hamilton. And this was the remodel of the, I guess what used to be University Arts building.
That's where they put the big clock on the wall, right?
Yes. There is the Sweet Greens went in there, and I'm not remembering the other business. I haven't been to work.
Just the downstairs, or was the building facade in its entirety renovated?
I think it's Pace.
Yes. I think Amy's here. I think it was, I mean, maybe it was only a coat of paint, but I think it was the whole building.
Hi. Yes, this is Amy French. They did renovate quite a bit. They used, they found historic tile to, replace. They actually uncovered some things that had been covered. It was an extensive rehabilitation, inside and out.
And Amy, HRB saw this as well, right?
To be honest, this one would be need a 4 and an after, I think, to really understand that. But you know, the block is the incredible block in downtown, as far as I'm concerned. Just the consistency all the way from one end to the other is, and so that if it manages to fit in nicely with everything else on that block, and if it was a significant facade renovation, which could be shown before and after, I would then think it's worthy.
We can pull together some images.
Yeah, I vote to keep it on.
This was the renovation that lost University Art too, wasn't it? Used to be a really great store down there.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got instead a Detroit watchmaker who didn't make it anyway.
That's right. And eyeglasses around
it's a real loss. That University Art was a real mainstay. And they were chased out by the renovation making rent increases possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we enjoy Sweet Greens and Warby Parker, and yeah, there's some other things that are there now that
I'd
people
rather
really
replace
like.
to buy my pencils, which I don't use anymore anyway.
Okay.
Let's go to the next one.
It got 2 votes, so we're hanging on to it for the moment. The 3223 Hanover, this is in the research park. It's the sort of butterfly building. It looks like we have both of them, building 1 and building 2, which maybe we don't need them to be separate. And this also has a tuck under garage because the building's up sort of on a higher level and the parking lot's lower. You can drive into the garage that's under the buildings. And there's a nice kind of butterfly canopy when you come up out of the garage.
I think this looks nice.
I think it's very, very, very nice.
Okay, so we'll get some more pictures of that one. Sam, I don't know if your aerial showed anything. No.
There's a their website has photos. The 3223 Hanover.com. I can kind of share if you want. I can share my screen.
Sure.
Is that really? Whatever. Oh.
Is it what?
We have a good handful of research park projects on this list. So I don't know if would there just be a research category, or would you categorize them differently? But
there's some good, I don't know, interesting facts for what it is.
I really like this
one. Story.
Yeah, there's the center canopy with the stairs coming up.
So also on this one, they have to work with the existing grading, which was done by Lockheed in the 50s. And they kept the existing grade in order to save the existing trees in the front. The same architect and landscape architect did another project, which is on our list, where they regraded the entire site, and they ended up having, they had to remove every single tree on the site. So, I mean, I think we could compare these, like the Hanover versus one of the projects on Page Mill, to weigh the differences, and how the same architect and same landscape architect, felt with the existing site.
That's a good point. This might be a good candidate for sustainability.
As I recall, there were a lot of bushes for butterflies. I like that a lot, that project. I'm gonna hope somebody could join me on that.
Yep, I'm supportive. I think Grace nodded.
Grace, okay, so is that 3?
That's at least 4.
4? Okay. And do we want to take there's the 2 buildings on that site. I mean, we would just take it as one property. It's just, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
One property, but the new piece is right, Alex? I think there was an existing building, and then this is the new section.
No, the 2 buildings are both brand new. It's just sort of phase 1 and phase 2. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But what we're not actually looking at there's a whole interior courtyard too, I think, between the 2 buildings. We should really.
Yeah, I took a picture of the courtyard. So we have something.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and that's what Os was showing you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, how important that is. Nice, interesting sighting. Yeah, the whole thing.
And even the surface lot itself has, many more trees than we would normally get. Partly because they did phase 1, phase 2, but so, okay. We'll keep that one on. The next one, Sam, is 3406 Hillview. So another research park project. So this is on the corner. They've got I believe they've got some underground parking, but then they also have surface parking that goes up into the hillside. And so I think this is the original one that got redone a little bit, but we were trying to be very careful about how this, faded into the hills.
All VMware, I just wanted to mention, and I took the photo, and then just that significant of landscape footage along Hillview and Coyote. I'm not sure if it's one to keep. I remember the VMware complex when that came through, but this is part of that just across the street.
I remember us talking about this one, maybe getting a landscape, potentially in the landscape category.
Do you have a photo of the landscaping in the back as it goes into the open space?
Sorry, I didn't get a photo of the back. I was rushing because of the light, but yeah. I think it might be worth to look at that in a site plan and keep it on the list if we consider for landscaping.
I remember having serious reservations about its landscaping and parking configuration at the back. Oh. But I haven't visited since it was built, so I don't know what that looks like now.
My feeling is if we keep the previous project, that we don't need to keep this one.
But they'd be different categories, right?
Why would that be? Part of the
research project, the previous project would be sustainability category, whereas this one potentially could be landscape. But if board member Balti is right that the landscape actually isn't good in the back, I mean, I think this picture just speaks to it looks like there's a cool planting plan here.
I do not support this building.
I can let it go.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Yeah, the street views that I'm seeing are still under construction. So, okay, so 480 Lytton was a facade modification. There was a little bit of concern about this one.
You're dancing. This thing was completely rebuilt. They tore it down to the slab.
To one piece of an element of the previous building. So it was a renovation.
But I think it's a striking bit of architecture, a little jewel box. I like it very much. So I support it.
It's not as nice as his other project, so I don't.
Anyone else support it?
Okay.
If we do a small projects category, then I would support it.
Because it's small.
Yeah, like a small, right. I think the last awards we did, one board member really wanted to do a small scope project. So, so anyway, if we do decide to do that, I would vote for it.
I would leave it up to you. I mean, I think we're open to categories.
I mean, small to me would mean
small.
No, it would mean residential, something like that scale.
Have you looked at the glass fins on this facade? It's incredible sophistication behind it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in person. I don't know that the pictures really do it justice.
It's really quite interesting how carefully they did all that work on the facade, and compared to what it was, it's a fantastic improvement.
Well, there was nothing there actually when they took it down.
There was a building there.
Yeah, there was, but they didn't keep anything.
Do you support it, Alex?
Yeah, I'm a conditional yes.
You're a conditional yes. Okay. Let's keep it conditionally.
Conditional support.
I put 1.5. Okay. So this is the synagogue Kolemeth. And I don't know. I mean, these are some fairly good photos. I don't know if Osma, you were able to go back and get any more, but we can do that later too.
No, but this is a big yes from me.
it's a definite yes for me. I went back up there. I went there just because it was so fascinating to see these photos. I wanted to see what it was really like. And, you know, you look through and they're very ordinary stucco-y forms that they've added this whole exterior concept to that makes it work. It's just a beautiful job. Really, really nicely done with very rough timber tied to those extended cantilevering steel framework that gives it
it's on my
scale.
list too.
You look through that, you know, you look through the ground floor of that and look at if you looked at the site planning, there's a whole, the actual temple, I guess, is behind the front. The front is more or less offices and the temple structure is behind it. And there's an open plaza, you know, so it has that kind of California wonderful openness in between the front part of the building and the back part of the building, you know, where you could imagine people coming out of services with the open space that just mingling. So it's socially kind of a fascinating way of dividing up the building as well and keeping outdoor feel to it. I think it's an excellent job.
Do we have potential categories, or what are you thinking for that?
Yeah, there's here, can I share my screen? There's a potential sustainability category with this one.
I think it would be unfortunate if it just got sustainability as its only, because like it's a wonderful piece of architecture.
There's a rainwater storage system in here.
Well, we can give it 2 or whatever, huh? Oh, there, my gosh.
Like daylighting.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So there's definitely a lot to see.
Thank you, Ozma. That's great.
So
yeah, I support keeping it on. I think we should also just keep moving and just know that this list is very big. But
3 votes. Next one is 567 Maybell, which is the 13 residential units. You know, there's some controversy behind this. This was the location that had the referendum, but this is, you know, the community ultimately wanted the 16 units.
You all saw the New York Times piece last week about this?
That's right.
No.
Yes.
About this project?
Yes.
No.
More than just this project, but critically about the project, yes.
Yeah.
No way I can support this.
No way I can support it either.
What did the New York Times article say?
Read it.
It was actually critical of the community, less so of the.
There's just too much controversy on this one.
Yeah, it was going to be, was it 60 units, some for seniors, and that's what had the referendum. The community wanted lower density. We were down to 30 some odd units, and then it ultimately got approved at 16 units.
16 single family houses.
They're very nice looking homes.
No, go look at them more carefully.
Okay. 636 Middlefields.
You know, this is kind of a dramatic. I took the photos. I just couldn't get good light on the building, but it's this use of kind of the red against the stucco-y background and the textural chimney things. I like this project. It's very unique the way it's done. A lot of texture to it, and then the simplicity of the forms of the buildings themselves, and they're each quite different shapes. It's very, very nice.
So the story on this one is there's one, like a therapist or a medical office.
Yes,
so
yeah, there's a
existing building, and then 3 units were added to that same site.
To that lot.
This one has a tandem drive-through parking where the The back tandem space is only eligible because you have an opening. You can open the door and stick the car into the setback in the back side. It's a crazy, crazy parking arrangement just to meet code. I helped remodel one of the units on one of these, and I wasn't that impressed with the materials or detailing.
Okay, I'm not hearing any votes.
Well, I vote for it.
One
Anybody
vote.
else? One vote? That's all I get?
That's all you get.
Okay, sorry, one vote. You'll get some votes for the next one. The next one's Junior Museum.
That's an excellent building.
Oh, it's excellent. Yes. And it, to say it's too bad that I got to find I don't have it handy, but I got to find the interior because there's they've redone the whole concept of the way this works. It opens up towards Lucy Stern through the parking lot to Lucy Stern, and the parking goes through to the back to the road behind. There's a major, everybody should take a look at this and see if, there's a major entry in scale that takes that same format here of the front and blows it up to 3 times the size with some very strange looking elements that project through the roof. I guess they're for flags or something like that. It's a bit out of scale on the inside, but the textures are wonderful. The way in which it approaches the street is so natural and wonderful. This whole area on the street side, the upper image, those are all office spaces. So they put those there. And then between those and the major structure, the exhibit area, is a courtyard, beautifully landscaped. They kept a major tree, which you can see kind of behind here. This is actually the entry from the street side, one of the ways in which you would get there, because I guess with the overflow parking, there's going to be some parking along Middlefield to get here, or people will walk from the community. This is a perspective idea here that it gets smaller, that opening on the backside. It's quite an interesting concept.
Let's keep going. I think we're all good. You like this one.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. The whole site planning is really wonderful.
David, that thing you were saying was flagpoles is public art, and it's interactive. So if you do go out there, please do try, touching those things.
You can move, right? It has motors in it of some sort. Yeah.
You gotta pretend you're a kid.
My grandkids.
There you go. Yeah, take the grandkids.
It's open. It's open
okay.
now.
Yes, it did just open.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So we've got 2555 Park Boulevard.
Jody, I have better photos that I sent. And the reason why I wanted to keep this on the list was really for that vertical garden on the sidewalk. If you wanted to pull up those photos.
Yeah.
And then I felt like the kind of that signage marquee is successfully done, the use of that material as it wraps around the building. But I did want to just make a plug for the vertical garden on a long front. If you want to, I had better photos with the light.
Yeah, are you seeing it?
Yeah, I've never seen anybody sit at that bench ever, but it's a nice gesture. And I'm there many times a day, but at the same time, the warmth, the choice in wood, and then I just felt like maybe we should acknowledge the
this makes all the difference.
For pedestrian, but I understand, and we do have a lot of nominations with this designer, and maybe this one already won an award. So, but I did want to just show you that couple photos. I took 2 other photos, I think, if you want to show those too, Jody. But I understand if we want to pull it, if we have too many by the same.
Well, I maybe that one gets a special because of what they did on the ground, just that piece of it. Do we have to show all of buildings each time? In other words, does it have to get an award for the entire building, or does it get an award for environmentally?
I also felt like the front facade, and Jody, there's a couple other photos, it's a very long facade, and they broke it down into kind of 2 separate masses, and so the building breaks down. But I don't love the corner above the vertical garden. But anyway, the vertical garden wraps, as does the use of wood and glass, so that
I give it the award of the detailing award for the ground floor environmental detail award.
Is that 2 votes, Grace and David?
Okay, 2 votes for that one. We'll keep it on. I will stop sharing. Next one is 3045 Park Boulevard, Research Park Building. Yes. So this is J. Paul at the intersection of Olive, I believe, Olive and Park Boulevard. So this is the one where we started out with, there was going to be a above grade surface lot. And then they ended up, they came around and were able to do a lot of below grade parking. And so it, at least the, you know, from beginning to end, this project definitely improved. So maybe they get the most improved award.
I can't support this one.
Yeah, I don't support it.
Okay.
3 unsupports. Me too.
Okay, that's a 0. Okay. Next one, 3180 Porter. This is Jazz Pharmaceuticals new building here.
Oh, that building. That's very nice when you go up to that building. But I don't know if it reaches the level of getting my support. No.
Okay, not hearing a lot of interest. And Grace was the one that took pictures, so not hearing interest from her as well. The 1400 Page Mill is an office.
Was this one for, because it's by a river, was there like a sustainability thought with this one?
I don't know. This was a little before my time. It is a concrete channel, so I don't know how much extra attention was paid to it.
The channel is existing and it goes through the research park. And this one is a net zero electric use. And it was done speculatively. So Stanford was the developer. And they committed to doing the net zero before they had a tenant lined up. And this one also, though, they regraded the site, so they actually removed all of the trees, which is sort of unfortunate.
So is there any support from anyone on this one?
So I said last time, I'm willing to support like this one or 636 Waverly, just because they're net zero electric use projects.
Yeah, that doesn't do it for me, Alex. I'm sorry.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Okay, and 636 Waverly is coming up, so maybe we can.
I just looked at that one and also don't support that one maybe. But we'll see when we get there.
Okay. So I put a 1 on it for now. So 1050 Page Mill, Research Park Building. This was 4 large buildings, you know, on a large site. We did have some community circulation concerns, but we handled those. It's got underground parking under these buildings. Yeah, so here you see like 2 of the buildings completed with 2 more under construction. It does have a nice center courtyard.
I can support this one.
Oh, I don't like it at all. What is all of this zooty stuff here? Doesn't and super cantilevers like that.
Okay.
I didn't get photos of the courtyards. And I've never seen it occupied because it's been COVID. So I just don't know if people are out there on the decks and working outside and in the courtyard. So and it's still not done completely, although it's very large and parts of it are done. So I'm kind of on the fence there.
I think if we looked at like a before and after of this one, you know, we're on the street. It was just like a huge, almost blank wall, and now it's like much more open to the street. And the courtyard is pretty amazing, like the tree preservation and the grasslands and stuff is actually very nicely done.
The landscape was, yeah, very promising there. Maybe we just keep it on the list for future discussion.
So is that support? Is that kind of support? Okay.
That might be a 1.5 support, but yes. All right. 355 University is the design within reach. This is the one where we did the bonus space for seismic renovation.
I strongly support this project. They opened up the lower level visually and practically from the entrance in the street. It's extremely successful as a way to increase retail frontage without dramatically changing the mass of the building. I always get a smile on my face as I walk by just to see how cleverly they've integrated the lower level.
Agree with that comment.
Okay, we got three
it's
votes for that one.
Detailed, but I mean, this would work well for a store frontage kind of category.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the next one is 375 University. So what this was cheesecake that then we split up into different retail spaces.
Yeah, nice, beautiful.
It's also beautifully proportioned and detailed.
Yep,
Yeah,
beautiful,
I can
beautiful.
support this one.
Both of these should be on here. We can decide ultimately which one or how many of them.
Or maybe both, but they both are dealing with university beautifully.
Okay. And then 500 University.
Oh, that's a beautiful building. But these photos don't catch it.
Yeah, I will vote for this one.
Yes, I like that building a lot, 500.
What do you guys like about it?
Well, do you have a street view that captures the way the overhang and the balcony on the third floor look? Then the way it opens up to that parking on the back side of it, as you see it from Il Fornaio. The fact that it has a very large open corner walkway, it's very pedestrian friendly. And then it has a beautiful glass enclosed coffee shop on the university itself.
So you're thinking for retail?
No, I think as a building as a whole, it does a lot of things. I think it does a lot to animate the pedestrian and retail activity on the university. The scale of it also, it's a large building, but because of the way they broke it down with the pedestrian level, the banding of commercial, and then the terraces and the roof projection, there's a balcony on top of that with the fourth floor to get the massing, but it's really quite well done, I think.
It's well done, but it's to me, it's overdone. It really.
I think you can say that about this particular architect because they've got 3 buildings now on this list.
Who is it? Never mind.
Well, we don't want to talk about that this way.
Yeah, I see some support from at least 2 people. We can keep going.
Okay. And then, oh, where'd Sam go? So 636 Waverly was the next one. There we go.
This is the other net zero one. Is there a second for this one?
There's Palo Alto brutalism.
No, no, I do not support this one.
Is there anybody else? Okay.
Okay. And then the 701 Welsh was the Children's Hospital.
Do you have the main facade photo yet?
Yeah, I reached out the photo.
Oh, there we go. Actually, the aerial does.
That's the aerial.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to be looking at it from across Welch with that tower on. Tower and it's really very nicely done, this project, with all of the detail and the recognition of what it is as a children's hospital as well, because it's it's catering to places for kids to appreciate life as they have it. It's a really nice project.
So I've got a street
view. Did you ever
view.
get a chance to see the inside? It's pretty amazing. Like like when you go to the elevator lobby, it's designed as a redwood tree. So like you're going into the redwood tree to go upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're upstairs, then there are tree houses.
You got inside, really lucky guy. Yeah. Yeah. How'd you get in?
You can't get in now, but I saw it when it first opened.
Okay. So is that two people that support, Alex and David?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a conditional support because I think for me a lot of it is the inside, and it's not really accessible to the public. So, yeah. So I think it would depend on the category.
I don't know that we can do inside. We don't review inside.
No, so but the outside is really the detailing, I think, is really well done here. But unfortunately, the photos don't seem to really set it off the way it really feels to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of trees and things in the way to get good photos.
That's better.
Is there any support for the outside or for the design that we reviewed?
Yeah, I need to abstain from this because I had a business dealing with a client who was very involved in this on the board of directors, I think.
Anyone else? Alex, are you going to support this for what we can support it for?
Well, David, which category are you thinking about? You're saying like exterior?
Yes. Exterior. Look at this. Look at this arrangement here with a glassed element here on the left. These photos just don't do it. And this is live photo. I mean, it's your street views, but this is just wonderful openness to the scale of it. And you go in to the parking below, nicely done, and the balconies are broken down with these shading devices, which are colorful and nice. It's a huge complex, but it has some very nice, really nice detailing. Artwork on the outside. Did we have anything to do with that? These look at that lower level with the glass canopy and those insertions in the wall, which are filled with I forgot what it is, what are in them, but just to break down the wall structure with something on a childlike scale at that bottom is really quite amazing.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll vote to support.
Yeah,
I want to go take a closer look.
Scale and stuff. Yeah, I could support that.
Okay, we got through the list.
We did?
We did. We got through the list. Let me see. Let me fill in. I didn't put all the zeros in, so let's see. 1 second, and I'll try.
I counted about 20.
Yeah.
So we eliminated 10.
It's a bit like 32 to 20.
We didn't get much shorter, did we?
Getting there.
Hey, that's pretty good. That's like a third that we lopped off.
Okay, let's see. We did.
Need 3 more meetings.
So what's our assignment? Given I just want to make sure, we're at the end of the year. Like, should we have a focused assignment for next time? What do you think,
Yeah, we do have 25 items, 25 projects left.
How about 1400 Page Mill? Is that still on the list? I had a question mark.
I put that crossed off. I crossed that.
1400. I had a 1.5 because of the net zero and those sorts of things.
That's right. So is it yes or no on our list? Alex, you were arguing for that one.
Who was the 0.5?
Or maybe Alex was the 0.5. I can't remember.
Right. Well, I think it all depends on categories, right? So we just have to keep on working on the list.
Yeah, I wrote down categories that we discussed. So we discussed materiality, sustainability, retail, housing, and landscape.
Did we each send in our list of, you know, high votes, or, and then could that be put into a spreadsheet so that we see 3 votes for that already? And then maybe at our pre-ARB, we think about how we discuss it based on that. Would something like that make sense in terms of, you know, more focused discussion based on already having been there, gone to the site? I have to go to Colameth now. I have to go to Packard, right, in Children's Hospital, and then us each sending in our list. I'm just trying to think of how to do this. We didn't do this in the past in this expansive way, is what I remember. So I'm just trying to think of how to get there, since we have Castellet on December 3rd, and
yeah, it might be tight. Do you think, Grace, should we try to nail down categories in advance, or do you think as we kind of, if we do this homework assignment where we send in our favorites, we just note what category we think works for that, or multiple categories could work for that?
yeah, I'm open. I mean, maybe we each write a list with categories and addresses, and then, you know, we review those lists and see, you know, obviously this one everybody agrees we should, I mean, I don't know if we'll all agree, but if there's some consensus, I'm open. I mean, whatever you think. I just think we should have an assignment given given, you know, where we are.
I think maybe something that could work is if folks want to, so if Jody sends out this updated list with the items that are crossed out, I've been crossing stuff out on my PDF. We could ask folks to go through the list and then either say what category they think it would be good for, or if they don't like it, then a no vote. And if people can send that to me, then I can kind of collate and be like, these 5 were nominated for retail, these 5 were nominated for sustainability, and then we can pick a winner from that.
Yeah, great. Do we send it to you or do we send it to Jody? How does that work? I mean, the easiest if we were just in a work environment is just to have a Google, right? And then we just can each.
You gotta go through Jody.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
This is a public meeting, right, Jody?
Yeah, it does need to be a little bit of a public process. I mean, this is awards. It's not a decision that we're making on a project, but let me talk to Amy. I don't know if Amy did anything different in years past, or I can talk to the attorneys and see if we could do a Google document that we just put notes on.
We didn't have Google Docs in the past, probably.
Yeah, really, we didn't have that issue.
I think if maybe we get an Excel file that has the short list, and then we can each note, you know, in the column next to it, the category, or I wouldn't vote for this. And then that'll kind of, in Excel, it'll be easy to collate. If everybody does that, we can just
fill in.
We can see where it lines up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've got a column in here for, I guess, proposed category. And then support. And so if everyone fills that in, yeah, I can do that.
Cool. Any last thoughts? on Arb Awards. This was really productive, I thought. Okay, we'll move on. So our next item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes for October 7th. Are there any comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes for October 7th.
There's a
Second.
Great. Let's take a vote.
Board Member Baltai,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lee,
Yes.
Board Member Liu,
Yes.
Chair Thompson.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Great. So the next one would be the meeting minutes for October 21st.
I have one comment on that, on those minutes.
Mhm.
Is that the one of the architects is labeled a Mr. and it should be a Ms. And that's on page 50, packet page 57, 60, and 62.
So it says Mr. and it should be Ms.
Right.
Okay.
This is it says Mr. Duong, D-U-O-N-G, and that should be a Ms.
D-U-O-N-G. Okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, I'll move that we approve the minutes if there aren't any other comments.
I'll move we approve this.
Alex, just move it.
Alex, just,
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Volte, second by Liu. Let's get a vote.
Board Member Baltai,
yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lee,
Yes.
Board Member Liu,
Yes.
Chair Thompson.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
And then we've been having this NVCAP under the board member announcements, but Alex, I think last you said there isn't anything happening there, right? Should we be taking it off of the agenda?
Yeah, so there's no active involvement by the working group at the moment, but it's possible that the planners in charge it's possible that they could reconvene the committee to get feedback as the plan is developed. So, I mean, I think you can take it off, and then if it comes up, then it will, you'll have to figure out something.
Okay, we'll just put it back on. The other note that I had that wasn't on here was, I mentioned this last week, or last time we met, that the mayor had asked us to discuss ideas for CalAv. And I had wanted to put that on the agenda this week, but it didn't work out. So
It's on the digital agenda, although it's under announcements. We didn't have quite enough time to put it as an action item, but we can, put out the factual information. And there is, I believe the council hearing got moved off till January also. So there is some more time before council is going to talk about this as well.
okay. All right, we'll keep tabs on it. And
but if you want to open the conversation and then, just lay out the facts for the moment, and then we could have a more hearty discussion next time.
yeah.
If that sounds good.
You mean right now? Like let everybody know?
Yeah, just let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah, what I know at this time. Okay, so yeah, I'll mention again. So the mayor had a meeting with a bunch of the board member chairs and mentioned that he would like us to discuss within the board ideas for CalAv. So CalAv has been shut down for vehicles. There's you know, there's live music happening there, there's restaurant spill out, and he's sort of looking to us to consider ways to make the project successful moving forward. CalAV stays shut down indefinitely.
It's currently shut down until June 2022. And so that's another conversation is for council to kind of finalize if it would stay closed.
Right. And nevertheless, I think we could also provide input on short-term ideas as well. But I think what I'd like to do with this board is to kind of get everybody's thoughts on what they think we as the Architecture Review Board could do in terms of projects, research, or you know, anything that we as our expertise might be able to do to work towards making CalAV successful from a space planning and, you know, formal way. So are there any questions about?
You want to discuss that now, Osma, or are we just briefly touching on it, or?
I had wanted to discuss it at this meeting, actually, because I brought it up last meeting. And so maybe some initial thoughts on like how we can organize ourselves and organize conversation about maybe what might be helpful to have on the next agenda item so that we can make it a productive discussion.
I've had several discussions with council members sort of informally about the idea of making some sort of outdoor performance space on CalAV or even University Avenue at the time. But the idea was to create some sort of a place, a stage perhaps, or a place where a stage could be temporarily erected, where you could have some sort of live music or artistic performances perhaps, similar to the way Redwood City has that courthouse plaza. And they have a lot of concerts that bring a lot of people out. And the council members I was speaking to suggested that the ARB could take the lead on setting up an architectural design competition to the community just to get ideas as a way to do a grand charrette. If the architecture board were to form a committee that would then pencil out the outlines of a competition like this, and you could do it at probably very little cost to the city. That was the council members' approach, that rather than going to the Public Works Department and doing a request for proposals process, have the ARB take the lead on setting up a design competition, just open to anybody, but mostly local people probably, and to see what comes out of that, see if some good ideas come out of it. I thought there was a lot of merit to those suggestions as one way at least to just sort of cast a broad net of what ideas are out there. If it were structured carefully enough but loose enough, you might get all kinds of creative solutions. And I think the architecture board is probably in a good position to both structure what the parameters are to that contest or charrette. And also it is really advantageous to the city not to have to pay expensive consultants to do this kind of thing. That's as far as I wrote up a one-page outline of how this could work. I met with Chair Thompson once on the avenue just to talk about it quickly, but it never went much farther than that. And I wasn't sure if we were overstepping our bounds or what the council really wanted us to do. And I'm not sure how appropriate it is for us just to push forward on that, although I think it's a good idea.
So council has definitely asked for some interest in this, and I'll find my notes here in a second, but I'll let Chair Thompson carry on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I remember hearing about that. And I do think the rubber should hit the road soon. I think if we do this, I would love to set up an ad hoc committee where we can, maybe it's the CalAV ad hoc committee. That's a group that can take this forward. What are the thoughts from the other board members on this?
I have some quick thoughts, and thank you for bringing this up. And Peter, I like hearing all these ideas that you just mentioned. I just wanted to say that I think it'd be really important to know just what the ask is, knowing that 6/22 is June 2022, and then are we asked for short-term or long-term ideas or both? The other thing that I think would be really great is to identify stakeholder groups. I'm just thinking of residents who live in that area, even on Cal Ave, there's a residential development there at the end. Recognizing that there's a plaza right there and understanding its use. And then other stakeholders like obviously commercial business owners and surrounding neighborhoods. I mean, this is kind of a juncture point for multiple neighborhoods. And I guess just one word, I feel like, you know, as designers or an ARB as a group, we're just a small group of people, 5 people with some expertise. And definitely we know architects and designers and planners and landscape architects and all of this. But I think this process should be well thought out in terms of stakeholders and all those constituents and where they sit. So I hope that mapping is occurring on the council's side and that the ask is well articulated in terms of what they're asking for, what's the time frame, what is, you know, we're not going to be prescribing program uses, for example. I mean, given, you know, so I just feel like it's a big problem that where the question of what we're asked to do should be, you know, thought out.
And so the motion that I have so far from council was directing staff to include in its work plan for streetscape design on Cal Ave, have staff return with a process recommendation to pursue a pro bono design expertise such as AIA or ARB, and to include an evaluation of potential sites for permanent performance stages in other potential areas such as downtown. So I think we are in the very beginning stages. And like I say, staff was going to go back in January to talk to council some more to further refine this. But, you know, we can include some questions from you or things of that nature.
I've given this a bit of, can I speak, Osman, or do you want everybody else to jump in?
I did want to hear from Alex, actually.
Okay, that's fine.
How about me too?
And David.
Thank you.
Well, I will come around, Peter.
That's okay.
Okay.
I do too. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to have lunch too, so.
Right.
So I think it's a great idea. I will say that the city's done this once before for downtown. We had a charrette, and I think my recollection is they brought in like Cal Poly students in teams, and they analyzed different parts of downtown, and they made recommendations and presented them. I think they presented them at the Art Center, and a lot of those concepts were eventually incorporated into the comp plan. And so things like strengthening the side streets, redoing Lytton Plaza, like those things have actually happened, and they were incorporated and completed. But you know, with the city, it takes a long time. You know, it's not, these things really don't happen quickly. So, so I think that that's just a caution. You know, that we can achieve things, but it's not a quick fix.
It's a great thought.
Yeah. So I'm kind of reminded of something that was done in New York when they built the original World Trade Center. They took the ground floor areas of it and used it for a lot of very flexible commercial uses. So it opened the possibility of, say, a bread vendor, you know, and a lot of commercial possibilities that this can pull them out from the street. Maybe Molly Stone's, you know, would do some special stuff on the street at some point in Cal Ave. So it should be a broad idea. Entertainment, of course, you know, things that happen on the street just to liven up the street and have people come there, you know, should be a very broad view of both commercial, entertainment, additional sort of floating restaurants, perhaps, or, you know, it's always interesting kind of these trucks that are on the side streets, you know, and have special foods and come here. CalAv has a tremendous, wonderful variety right now. And actually, you know, going there a few times recently, it's really, really successful at noontime. So it would be good to look at the timeline of what can be out there and the flexibility to let it create itself. That's my comment on it.
Great. That flexibility is really critical too. Board Member Balte?
Well, I wanted to try to fight what Alex said about the city inertia by actually proposing that we do something or ask staff to do something, which would be to form an ad hoc committee with 2 members of the ARB and 2 members of the city council, and possibly 1 or 2 members of the PTC to explore actually doing some kind of a design charrette or competition this spring. But I think if city council had 1 or 2 members on this committee as well, we'd have a lot more of a sense of what the scope really is, what they want to do. It's not just an artistic thing or an architectural design. As Grace was saying, there's a lot behind what the council wants. But if we put it to them that we're willing to put 2 of us out there, and I'm willing to volunteer myself as 1 person, but it's up to the chair. But maybe that force them also to put their mouths where their money is. If they want to do this, they've got to put a little bit of time into it. I think it's a waste for us to go out and do some grand design contest without having their support. We're just going to spin our wheels, and you know, it's a waste of time then. I
agree with Peter.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
If I may, I think that there should be some listening workshops to the public so that
absolutely. Part of that process would be once you have this
council
committee,
members,
you then want to do some kind of outreach.
Exactly, but mapping out a process and knowing that, you know, it is November, or almost, you know, the holidays, and, you know, we have this June 2022. So if something's going to happen, it has to be kind of mapped out like a master plan on how that's going to happen and get there to the charrette and what happens after that charrette. I just think it's not a Band-Aid approach. It's not something that doesn't move, but, you know, put your best foot forward, right? And really think it through.
It'd be great to see what ideas our community puts forward. We have a lot of talented people in this town. And we want to just cast a pretty broad net right now and see what comes out of it. There's so many ideas. But Jody, is that feasible to go back to council and say we want to form a committee like this?
You're on mute, Jody.
Okay, got to turn the microphone on. Yes, Rachel's putting together a staff report for, you know, for council in January. So, you know, these ideas that you're bringing up, you know, I'll try and make sure those get incorporated into the staff report. And, you know, maybe we need an ARB representative at that particular hearing as well.
Would it be preemptive to try and form this ad hoc committee in advance? Like, should we try to do that today, or?
I wouldn't want to do that today, just giving our noticing.
Yeah.
But I think if, you know, people want to show interest, they could show interest.
Okay, yeah, if any of the other board members have interest, just message me.
Yeah, I'm interested, you know that. But
I will note that down.
I'm interested in doing something if we have city council support. That's what I want to be sure, Jody, you capture with the report, or however you give it to council.
It could be something that we map out for the next 6 months, and maybe it's a proposal or it's a plan for what happens after 6 months, and maybe it's something more long-term potentially. There's also, I liked Alex's idea of engaging students. We have the Stanford D School right here. Could be a really nice collaboration.
Yeah, I just want to give a plug. Architectural Design program at Stanford. You know, John Barton would be somebody to reach out to, as well as high school students as well. I mean, other ages, of all different ages.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. Well, thank you. I think that was really great. And yeah, definitely message me individually if you have any other thoughts and if you have interest in being on the ad hoc committee. Okay. Are there any other last things before we adjourn? Not seeing any.
Yes.
Oh.
It's Amy in the background. I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be sending out a packet for December 2nd. It's the Castellea project coming to the ARB. You will have a packet 2 weeks in advance, as will the public, virtual packet, electronic, what have you. And then tomorrow you will be receiving plans, so hard copy plans in a packet. So I wanted to make sure, because, you know, in case you're going out of town or whatever, leave instructions with Medina, who is, I think, still here in the meeting. So
Yes.
as long as the normal addresses work, we're good.
Excuse me, Amy, tell me the dates again. I was mesmerized.
December, well, today is online packet. You'll get an email. Tomorrow is delivery of hard copy, and the meeting date is December 2nd. Jody had mentioned that the next ARB meeting is that Castellea project.
But
Yeah, so the
this week.
Yeah,
packet is early for 2 weeks early.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great, Amy. Thanks.
and you said the packet will be delivered tomorrow for the hard copies.
Hard copies, but you will get in the email today electronic.
Okay.
Packet.
Great. Yeah, just because that's a little different than normal. So we're trying to make sure we get out some good public information.
Precisely.
Thank you, Amy.
All right.
And then we do have an ad hoc committee item after this. And I believe board member Lou and board member Hirsch are on the ad hoc committee. So I do see Architect Young is on as well. So I guess, yeah, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Okay. So we're still on Zoom, you know, out to the world if they want to see, but we're not truly being recorded because that's our standard practice with ad hoc committees. Sam is still no video. Oh, I see him coming. There we go. Okay, great. Sam, I will let you, did anybody need a minute for a break? Are you both good board members? Okay, they sound good. So Sam, I'll let you take it away then.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. I didn't realize my camera was still off earlier. Too many screens. So yes, thank you, the board members, for powering through everything and sticking with us. This is the ad hoc review for the adjustments for the roof terraces at the 160 Waverly project that was reviewed by the ARB back on October 21st. There was a requirement for this project to come back and have adjustments to the terraces. Again, there was 2 rooftop terraces to consider more privacy and look at ways to minimize usable space. And then there was a requirement for the awning or the awnings, I should say, to also come back because there was no material sample provided for the board to review on October 21st. So there was a material sample provided. It was posted at King Plaza and City Hall. So I do hope that both of you had a chance to see that. It was posted with the original material board so you could see it in context. It was a large metal panel, but it is true to the color that it will, that's intended to be installed. And we have Heather Young with us, who of course is the applicant and lead architect for the project. And she'll go into detail. I think Heather prepared something for going into the changes that the board requested to see. And additionally, there was some additional kind of, I would call them refinement changes that Heather Young and her architects worked on to refine some of the detailing on the project. Doesn't change massing or anything like that, but it changes some of the detail accenting features. And again, Heather could go into that. So take it away, Heather.
Thank you, Sam. Is it okay if I share screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Please
Let me just pull that up real quick. And is that good? Okay.
Yes.
Great. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time to look at this with us today. And there had been a request to review increasing the privacy at the roof terraces. And what you're seeing here are the two revised roof terrace images. And the big thing that you can see, and I'll just go to this more quickly, is we're proposing to use the solar panels as a physical barrier. So here was our original proposal, and you can see this is the Waverly is here on the right, and we had the solar panels on the roof, but they weren't, they were just part of the roof. They weren't really actively being thought about as a physical barrier. The October hearing, we reoriented the panels and put them to reduce access to views to the west. And we added planters on the north to keep people away from the parapet and to reduce views to the north. We have a revised proposal, which we actually think is superior, which is to resize the panels and to rotate them so that you go from a physical obstruction of 2 feet to keep you from the parapet to 6 foot 4 feet to push you away from the parapet. And that's better demonstrated in these sections. So here's the front building with the 2 foot setback, and you can see the cone of vision, versus the physical pushback of over 6 feet. You just physically can't get to the parapet. And that's happening on both the front building and the rear building. And we did look at a second version where we increased the height and the depth of the planters. Again, putting them along that north facade. That had a fairly minimal impact. You know, here's the planter, here it gets wider. It pushes you further away, but it's not nearly as dramatic as what happens when the solar panel is placed there. And so we wanted to bring that back to you as a proposal for how to mitigate, to increase privacy and again, reduce incidental viewing into the neighboring properties. And we did the calculations. This actually reduced the usable area on the terraces by an additional 10% from where it was when we saw you in October. You're on mute, Alex.
So thank you, Heather. I think for staff, I think my only concern, which I think could be addressed in conditions of approval, is in the event that there are no photovoltaic panels, I think then we would need to revert to planters. And I say that because I know of ARB projects where applicants have talked about putting panels on the project, but then when I look on like aerial photos, there aren't any. So I just want to make sure that we have like a fallback position.
So Alex, sorry to interrupt. Because of the new REACH codes in California and in Palo Alto, photovoltaics are required. We have to have them.
Yeah, it's interesting. But you wouldn't necessarily have to have as many as you're showing, right?
This is only slightly higher than the required amount.
Oh, interesting. So that's
yeah, I know.
Fair bit.
Yeah. And partly that's, sorry, partly that's due because they're adjacent to the parapet, they're less efficient. So we have to have even more than we would have had normally.
I'll have to get in on some of this discussion. Heather, you know, the idea of the planters that you had originally there are certainly a softening element for a rooftop. You know, what you're not showing us here is furnishings, which you do in the original drawing show us that there's going to be furniture up here. People are going to be using the space. And I'm not sure, I don't remember whether there's actually pavers or other sort of scale reducing kind of elements on the roof that make it kind of friendlier, at least in the areas where there's going to be seating. But why didn't you just decide to increase the size of the planters so that there's simply more softening of the front roof and more natural effect to it, to the size of these solar panels? They're really not, I mean, I have some on my roof. They're really not very attractive to be near. So I thought that the idea of putting them on the back of the roof where you don't sit, where you could even screen them off in some way if you wanted to, but to keep them on that portion of the roof and then soften the idea as at the same time as you're providing, you know, a dimension that keeps people away from that side. In fact, you know, the planters might even feel better that way because there's always has to be some space in between these solar panels. And they have all kinds of, you know, elements that connect them to each other, and then they go down to the hot water heater or to the electrical room. Why wouldn't you consider just larger planters?
Thank you, David. We actually did look at larger planters, and we to do planters of the size of the footprint of the solar panels here would have had a significant structural impact on the building because of the dead load of the soil and the water for them. So we thought actually that this was a really positive solution in that, as you mentioned, the panels themselves are not necessarily attractive if you're on the space. So our assumption is that any use of the space, like furniture, would put its back to the solar panels and focus occupants away from the north side even further. And then to your point about materiality, yes, it's a raised pedestal system, and there are 2x2 roof pavers as part of that system.
I find it hard to believe that that you can't support in some way, even if you had to increase the structural capability of the roof a bit to support it. I've seen roofs where you use a flatter kind of, in fact, I've done it, you know, buildings that have a lighter load in the planters themselves, but they're more attractive. You can use drought tolerant kind of plants that would work well, and you have benefit of the lesser amount of solar energy on the rooftop itself. It's environmentally better, friendly. And I think you should really reconsider that. I don't think it's an impossibility structurally, and I think it would be 100% more attractive. And if, you know, discussing this with the potential owner here, they might get the idea that they could raise some vegetables or rather use those planters in some way that was beneficial to them otherwise. It's a much more humanistic way of dealing with it than having to have solar collectors. I personally, you know, I just don't agree with this idea.
I don't disagree with your comments, and I apologize if I implied that it was structurally impossible. I meant that it was structurally challenging and difficult. Yes, you can do just about anything, as you know. This is the preference of the owners, is to provide the solar panels. They did have some concerns about the planters, that the residents might not embrace them as you do and maintain them as well. They were actually concerned that having this quantity of planter might actually be an eyesore rather than an asset. And I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm simply stating that there's perhaps more than one way to think about it.
Okay. I'd ask you to go back to them and just say that one of the members of the ARB didn't really like this as a solution, and would have preferred a bit larger planters. Certainly, the front building is going to be occupied by the owners, isn't that right?
I don't know if that's been determined.
Okay, so I don't think it's going to be, it needs to be a big issue maintenance-wise, because it can be planted with plants that are capable of being there for a long time without a lot of attention. So I think you should rethink that idea. I just don't think this is the right idea to have it have the solar collectors in an area where you're going to be sitting. It's I think that maybe even tenants would much prefer to have a softer effect on the front. even if you in some way took both sides and created sort of planters on both sides, you know, it might be a better way of treating the rooftop, integrating the planters with the furnishings possibilities of the front deck, and then keeping all the mechanical stuff where it really belongs in the back. I'd ask you to explore that. Sorry to have to extend this. I know you want to get going here, but I don't see why actually you couldn't do a lot of approvals process while you're still thinking about this.
That's something I'll bring back to them. What about you, Alex? You're on mute. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is a tough one. Like, I'm a gardener. I recognize that having like a continuous line of planters along the edge is potentially a lot of maintenance and a lot of water and weight. So I'm conscious of that. And then I think I do agree with David that it seems to me having some planters up there would make it more attractive. So yeah, I guess my thought generally is that the board motion try to larger planters, so we should try to stay with that.
Sorry, Alex, you were breaking up there, at least for me. I'm not sure if others.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it either.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm getting two. Okay, so I think my thought is that the board motion was to do larger planters. So I think we should try to stay with that, or bring it back to the whole board if the ad hoc committee can't come to an agreement about some sort of mix or between the panels and the landscape.
Thank you. I don't know. I know we don't keep transcripts, but it's all recorded. I honestly don't recall the specific wording. I thought it was to study ways to increase privacy, but I'm happy to bring this back up with the owners and get some feedback from them.
Okay, I'm back. So thank you, Heather. Sorry to be such a nuisance.
No worries, no worries. This is part of a process, and I got to tell you, I actually thought that this did a really good job in addressing what I thought was the primary issue, which was to increase privacy for the R1 residents and to keep rooftop occupants as far away from the parapet. So personally, I'm a little surprised, but I appreciate your comments, and we'll take them back to the owners.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
How does the ad hoc feel about the refinements?
Oh yeah,
we're not done.
We're not done.
No. Yeah. So let me go down, and there had been a lot of comment about the color of the entry canopies. And again, this is why we have a big process. We use 2 different rendering softwares, and one of them, the reflections on the canopies were much, much lighter than we had intended, but you guys picked up on that. Our intent had been that the canopies be this midnight bronze color to coordinate with the dark bronze and black colors of the other metal elements, but there seemed to be some interest in exploring this zinc gray color, which showed up in the renderings. And these are 2 actual products, and we did provide the samples. And so these are some rendering versions of those 2. We do still prefer the dark bronze, but we appreciate that you may have a different recommendation.
For this one, we really need Ozma for this. But
actually, it was Grace.
It was whom?
It was, it was Grace. Who?
It was Grace. Yeah.
I think she first brought it up.
I see.
But there, I just making that a little bit bigger for you. Yeah, we actually, especially as we go around the building, we really liked the sort of punch. You notice that the light fixtures, the railings, the trims at the wall openings, all of it was this same sort of dark bronze, black color. But
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's better to be consistent with that.
Yes, I'm in agreement too. I didn't really quite follow the whole color issue with. And I do understand that Board Member Thompson, she generally doesn't like dark colors.
Okay. But I agree with you on this one. It's consistent throughout. It's punchy as on the lighter wall down below. It's the other fixtures. I agree that consistency on this one is a good idea. So we could approve it, right, Alex, then, about that?
Generally will fade more, typically. Right?
It's pretty. I mean, all of the paints are they're high quality. They're commercial grade. They're meant to be resilient.
I'm fine with the darker color.
Okay. Thank you. The other issue, and I'm not sure if this was, David, something you brought up or something Peter brought up, but one of the comments that came out during the larger discussion really stuck with us. And it was that we had done a nice job emphasizing the entries and the folding door facades with the double set wall with the insets. But could we do, or couldn't we have done a better job with the actual entry doors into the units themselves to make more of them? And so at the back building, the entry to the ground floor unit and to the vestibule for the second floor unit, what we are in a brick facade, and we're proposing to again do the double wall treatment, where there's a return of bricks and then a brick wall and a brick header framing the entry. And we're hoping that this minor, we believe, improvement will be welcome by both of you. And then at the front building, where the entry into the vestibule to the elevator for the second floor unit is in the stucco wall, we looked at two different options. One, to treat it similar to the framed openings on the south side of the garage, where when it's a stucco wall and we have a framed opening, it's a black metal cased opening. And the other to say, maybe we take some of the brick from the front facade and use that as a treatment similar to the brick entries to the rear, but within the larger stucco wall. So this was not a required thing. This was, as Sam mentioned, a refinement, and we'd love to get your thoughts on these.
So the recess, is the recess, the height of the recess, is it as high as the ceiling on the inside of the building in section?
No, I think the floor level you can see is a little bit higher.
Oh, significantly higher.
Yeah, it is a framed element, but we thought it was proportional with the door and the awning in particular above it.
I don't know. I wondered what it would. I don't want to add complexity to it, but what it would be like if it was one element in the back that was all the way up to filled out the whole recess. So it made something a little bit more out of the doorway rather than just a regular door. And was, filled it up all the way.
It is going into private space. And so these are larger, front doors. I don't, the vestibules don't have a great deal of space on either side of them. And I don't know that we'd really want to do something overly vertical. We felt this was proportional. You can see here's the header for the standard brick height of the window head and the door head, and then we've pushed that up higher to tuck it under the awning. You get the frame of the material around it within the larger field. We're happy to do nothing. We just thought this was a positive addition to the project.
Understood. It just seemed to me to be a third possibility here, that the whole doorway is part of, could be clear story above window and then side light or whatever, and the door could be still part of it.
But wouldn't that be a different vocabulary than the rest of the project?
Okay. You win on that one. Yes, would be. All right. I guess, Alex, you have a choice, these two?
No, I think it's just a good idea. It makes them look less like a side door. You're making them look more like a front entrance. So and I don't really have a preference on the stucco one.
Okay. David, does one appeal to you more than the other? Or repel you less than the other?
I kind of like, I sort of like the way in which the edge member is dark like that, but I also wonder if it wouldn't, if the whole recesses and dark. Kind of
We
framing
actually looked at that and it was a little overpowering. We did look at that.
Okay. Yeah, I find that one to be just that little bit more detail to it that would be kind of nice. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you keep the one on the left, in other words, I like better.
Correct. Yeah, it's
I
more consistent.
Yeah, it's more consistent with the idea of the canopy above and the dark frame around the other windows. So if you want to, as you said, you want it to be of the nature of the building, then that certainly is a big improvement to do that, I think, as a linear element, because you're just doing the same thing really with the canopy up there as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So those were the 3 items. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yep. Okay,
all
Sam?
Right. So I think what it sounds like is the refinements that Heather's proposing here are acceptable changes. The awning darker color is acceptable, but the changes to the terraces need some more thought and need to come back.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
So Sam, I think the only is that I'm going to be off of the board soon. So we might need to have a different person on the ad hoc committee for the next time.
Alex, you weren't reappointed?
I withdrew my application because they're putting in term limits starting in January. So,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm off too, but I don't know what we're going to do without Alex or what anybody else might do without Alex.
Like, we actually got 10 applications for the ARB.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. You've been a strong part of the board for a dozen years, and you're the institutional memory of the board for the last dozen years as well.
Yes, thank you, Heather. I just wanted to show my face to accentuate what you're saying. So thank you, Alex.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we still have potentially 2 more hearings in December, so maybe you'll be.
1 more hearing because the term ends December 15th.
Okay. So 1 more hearing potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't you say you had a December 2nd? Oh, you don't have a December 16th meeting.
Well, it is on the 16th, which is after the 15th.
Oh, Alex, going out on a high with Castellea. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, that's a tough one. That's
that
the tough one.
That is a tough one. Yeah, for sure.
So Alex, that's official that you withdrew your application? And I hadn't heard that from the clerk.
I looked at yesterday. I told them on the phone, right? And then I sent them an email, and then the email bounced back. So they actually haven't heard from me officially. Yes, but I told them, and I was not interviewed.
Okay.
Heather, okay. I want to make just one more thought to you, is that I'm sort of wondering if there were deeper planters and you had a couple of levels of them, that sort of the front and the back, and there could be certain things on the back side that had a little more bulk to them in the front. I don't know, just a suggestion. If they buy the idea of the planter as a way of softening it, I also say you should really tell them that there are plants that really take care of themselves. I can't think of the variety that you use, but they're plants which hold water and don't need so much water, that are work in planters like this, and they have rather interesting kind of bulbous leaves to them, that keep the moisture in.
Those are typically like succulents, that kind of. Maybe that's what you're referring to.
Alex, who knows about these things, would be able to describe exactly what I'm talking about. I've forgotten the name of it, you know, but there are lots of plants out there that are not low at water requirements. We've used them on the roofs in New York. They seem to be very good for solar reasons as well. Keeping a cooler roof. So it's another sales point you might use with the owners that that their heating or cooling uses will be reduced by having more plants on the roof. Insulation value. Yeah,
that's right, Alex, right? Those are kind of typically succulents that retain a lot of water.
Yeah.
No maintenance, kind of have the thicker leaves.
Yes, that's the typical plant for roof gardens, but they're generally short.
Yes,
so,
they are short, but they're textural and interesting. And that's why I'm sort of thinking if you had a couple of varieties of plant possibilities in planters, then you create a more interest to that, you know, and it's less maintenance.
Okay, well, it seems to me, David, that's a different, well, that's like another alternative where it could be there are photovoltaics, and
yes.
then there's a different planter with the
We can't hear you, Alex.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I'm going to switch to the computer audio. Come on.
No,
So I think,
better.
Heather, do you have background? Maybe if you mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Oh, much better. Oh.
Okay, I switched audio. Is this better?
Yes, much.
Great. So I think the idea with the succulents is fine. It seems to me
succulents. That's the word. Succulents.
Yeah, you would use the there's a particular species.
Yes, there is.
But I think that's a different idea, David. Right? I mean, that would be like combining the photovoltaics.
Oh no, I wasn't thinking of having both on the same side.
Yeah.
I was thinking the photovoltaics would go on the back of the roof, out of sight, and that the succulents and perhaps a mixture of planting types are possible up there without it being a maintenance nightmare, because the succulents really sort of take care of themselves.
Right, and I think we're just saying is that that's the only difference is that it's not providing like a 5-foot high landscape and planter height, which is what we usually do on like lower balconies.
Right.
Right. So I think that's fine. And then I think typically you can use less soil volume.
Right.
For the succulents, so that would address your weight issue.
Yes, it would.
I think, Heather, you might want to take a look at, the College Chair Center that Tony Carrasco designed. It has a roof garden on top of the market. And they use the succulents, and it's all fairly low height. So you might want to take a look and see.
Is that publicly accessible?
No, it's private. There's an outdoor staircase.
Okay.
So maybe there's a way to get in without, that's not too difficult. It's not like you have to go through a tenant or anything.
I believe the staircase is in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you the garage in the back, or the street level parking in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks
Sam.
very
much.
Thanks, Heather.
Yeah. Thank you. Sam, maybe you and I can talk later today?
Yes, I'll give you a call later, Heather.
That would be awesome. David, Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. The project is looking really good.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Come a long way. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You there, Smoochie?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Smoochie is my son-in-law.
Ah.
Goodbye, Alex.
Yeah, David.
I'm going to miss you tremendously if this really goes through this way.
I'm not going anywhere.
I know. We're going to call you
meeting.
in as expert witness for all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
If I'm on, I don't know. I don't know yet.
I'm sure they'll reappoint you, David.
I'm not so sure. I'm afraid my presentation, I couldn't, a word that I can't use in public here.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
Okay, so I'm ending the ARB meeting then. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.